The whole school is watching. Every class, every elite, every camera in the building pointed at this ring. A scholarship worthless loser from Class E, which is also the worst class in the academy, just pure bottom of the pit human, and he is standing there holding a wooden sword. The kind of thing someone's grandpa would use to beat discipline into you. That's his weapon. His opponent just activated a B-rank explosive core. That's a power level that shouldn't even exist at a student exam. The arena is cracking. Explosions are firing in every direction. The crowd is screaming to stop the fight. The explosions hit, but when the smoke settled down, bros standing there like this was nothing. The bully panics and goes nuclear. Fires off everything, trying to bring the whole gym down on top of them. Security guards are trying to stop the duel. The veteran in the stands is freaking out, but the kid appears behind the bully in the blink of an eye and slams him straight to the ground. The rich boy starts crying, begging, pulling the "my dad" card. Our boy pulls out a purple blade and says 4 words. You'll never be a hunter. Up in the stands go Yunshe, the top student in the entire academy. Can't process what she just saw. She says cutting invisible mana in milliseconds is genius level. He fights like the old school hunters from 40 years ago. She has no idea how right she is, because 40 years ago this man was the one who made those hunters. Rewind. A dungeon. Korea's first and greatest hunter is on his last legs after killing the most dangerous monster on the planet, Gigantiana. The purple lizard's down, but so is he. His team is wrecked. The extras are dead. The ambulance is coming, but he knows he's not making it. So he hands command to his vice leader, apologizes to everyone, and dies. Kim Jun-woo, the legend. But death wasn't the end for our boy. He wakes up in some kind of limbo, and the monster's voice is there mocking him, saying his sacrifice was pointless, that nobody's strong enough to stop what's coming. But the badass yells back that it wasn't his sword that won. It was the hunting system he created, the foundation he built for the next generation. The big monster looks almost impressed, but then it says it'll be back in 42 years. Then he opens his eyes. Hospital bed. Kid's face in the mirror. He pinches himself. This isn't a younger version of him. This is a completely different person's body. A cop walks in and asks about some accident. Our boy says, of course, I got badly hurt killing Gigantiana in the Black Tomb. The cop and the doctor look at each other like this kid needs a padded room. He asks what year it is. March 2051. 42 years later. Exactly the time the monster said it would take. Bro runs to the window and can barely believe it. The soul he remembered was a dump. Destroyed, war-torn, barely standing. But what he sees now is a brand new city with happy people walking around like nothing ever happened. A smile finally shows up on his face. He thinks about his old friends and wonders if they're alive. Then, like the universe was watching and decided to be dramatic, a deafening alarm goes off through the hospital. A blue portal rips open in the middle of the street. But instead of running away, our boy sprints straight toward the danger. He's actually excited. He's about to see his legacy, the new generation of hunters in action. But the scene he finds makes his blood boil. Instead of evacuating, there's a crowd standing there watching like it's a concert, filming on their phones. A guard tells everyone to keep their distance while they lure the monster out. Lure the monster out of the dungeon. Rule number 1 that he taught every single hunter in his generation: never pull the monster out. One screw up and you wipe a city off the map. He starts pushing through the crowd, screaming that this is insane. Then the crowd goes wild, screaming go Inchi like they're at a K-pop concert. A hottie steps out of the car posing like a celebrity. The girl walks up to the barrier, activates some support system, and charges the werewolf with a sword like it's ballet. The crowd is filming for TikTok. The support team in the back is taking selfies. Our boy watches this with the face of a man who just watched someone microwave a steak he spent 40 years dry aging. This is what you call a cleanup? The hunting system he built, the legacy he died for, turned into a content farm. He screams that this turned into a circus, not a hunt. The TikTok hunter tells him the stuff they teach at school is cute, but in real life it doesn't work like that. Calling that a battlefield was the last straw. So now you've got Korea's greatest hunter, stuck in a beat-up kid's body, watching everything he built get turned into influencer content, while a ticking time bomb is counting down to the apocalypse. He needs to get ready, but nobody's gonna listen to a patient. The only hope is finding his old squad. He tracks down his former vice leader, Wooshik, now an old man running a place called Hunter Academy. And bro, when Junwoo walks into his office, the old man nearly has a heart attack. The kid says Wooshik, like they're best friends, then throws in a jab about how age hit him like a truck. Wooshik calls him crazy and reaches for the phone, but Junwoo drops one name. And Sunyoung? The old man freezes. Our boy starts rattling off private memories that nobody else on the planet could know. The old man grabs him by the collar, demanding to know who he is. With eyes glowing red, Junwoo says his former subordinate got pretty bold. The mood gets heavy. Wooshik freezes in pure fear. That presence, even in a kid's body, is unmistakable. 5 minutes later, the old man is doing push-ups on the floor, while Junwoo stands over him holding ice to his face, because Wooshik punched him out of shock. Now here's the problem. Junwoo needs his legendary sword, but it's locked up at the association base. The association is run by Go Sok-do, and the only way to get to Sok-do is through his granddaughter, Go Yunche, the same girl who called his hunting rules cute, and she goes to this academy. So Korea's greatest hunter, the man who built the entire system, enrolls in high school, gets put in Class E, the worst class on purpose, so he doesn't draw attention. His plan: stick close to the granddaughter, get the sword, and prepare for the apocalypse that only he knows is coming. But this school is run by a corrupt parents association that rigs elections, disappears students, and treats the council like a mafia. The teachers are compromised, the bullies have political protection, and the people at the top have no idea that the special admission student they keep trying to expel is the man who built everything they're profiting from, and he's about to tear it all down, one wooden sword at a time. The scene suddenly cuts to the next day, with the badass in front of the school. He finds the classroom and gets a little nervous before walking in. The plan is to keep to himself until he can get to this Yunche girl. But out of nowhere, a girl shows up behind him and immediately starts chewing him out. She steps in close, staring at the kid like he's some weird animal. Then she randomly asks if he's that dog from yesterday, and says she didn't expect the new student to be him of all people. Then the brat just walks into the classroom and leaves our hero glitching in the hallway. When he finally walks in, the whole class goes quiet and stares at him. The extras start whispering, giving our protagonist dirty looks. He tries to ignore everyone and looks for a place to sit in peace, until he finds an empty desk, but there's a huge bouquet of flowers on it. Our hero stares at the bouquet, thinking it's a total waste of money. Right then, the psycho shows up yelling and talking crap about the teacher. He looks at the class with disgust, thinking those extras are pathetic, and the answer's right there when he locks onto our hero with a little grin. The brat recognizes the kid, remembering the mess that went down the day before. Then we find out the video of the fight went crazy, viral on social media. Without wasting time, the bully walks up and smacks him on the head, and even clowns him for being a transfer student and landing in the worst class. But out of nowhere, he switches up, holding out his hand to introduce himself as Jusuk. Our hero remembers to avoid trouble, so he swallows his pride and shakes his hand. But when he says his name is Kim Jun-woo, the bully cracks up and starts clowning him, saying having a legendary name doesn't make him a hunter. The bully keeps the meme Jun-woo jokes going, but our hero's about to explode. Then the brat starts talking about some Yoonchae, dropping some really shitty comments. He judges the girl's looks and talks trash about her family, acting like a total asshole. But the scene changes when a tough blonde shows up, telling him to check himself. The bully gets pissed and says he's elite, but she humiliates the guy. She reveals he only didn't get kicked out of school because of his daddy. The kid turns into a beast with rage and lunges at her to rough her up. But a loud impact stops everything and the attacker goes flying. The extras don't understand anything, seeing the bully all wrecked on the floor. And the answer's right there. Our hero got tired of being nice and kicked him. Our hero's pissed, and now the vibe got heavy for everyone. The bully stays on the floor, not believing he got booted by the new kid, but he gets up all salty, swearing he's gonna mess the kid up. Our hero starts laughing in the face of danger, making the bully look like an idiot. With the look of someone who's seen the abyss, he asks if the bullies ever smelled the afterlife. The brat throws a crooked punch, but our hero dodges it easily. And the answer's right there. The punch was so bad it left the extra wide open. But the fight gets interrupted by the teacher, who shows up right at the moment things are about to go down. The bully storms off, swearing he's going to turn the hero's life into hell. The scene cuts to the office, with the principal complaining about the mess on the first day. Then we find out the bully is the son of some big shot, a shady-ass minister. The principal explains the kid's untouchable, and is always doing dumb crap without paying for it. But our hero doesn't even care, saying he'll handle the drama his own way. As he leaves the room, the angry blonde is there waiting and scares him. She asks why he got involved, and he says he can't stand rude people. Our hero asks why the blonde picked a fight, since it had nothing to do with her. But then he realizes she looks exactly like Go Yoonchae, that famous girl. And the answer's right there on her badge. Her name is Go Yoonchae. The kid asks if they're sisters, and she confirms they're related. Our hero's eyes light up, thinking that connection's gonna make life easier. But she explains they have different moms, and one of them got pushed out. We find out she isn't even on the official record, treated like she doesn't matter. Then she says her own grandpa kicked her out of the family with a little smirk. The blonde thinks it's funny. Our protagonist basically hit the jackpot because of that. She says she kinda gets it, since a special student is basically prey there. The blonde says she thought he'd be different and walks away. But our bowl-cut idiot says she was doing the same thing, and finishes by saying that whole family talk was ridiculous. The blonde tries to give the pro some advice, but he doesn't care and leaves. The scene cuts to the window, where our hero plans how to get to Inche. But out of nowhere, a huge chubby guy shows up, freaking the kid out. The new bully wants to confirm if he's the cocky new kid from Class E. Our hero looks back and sees a chubby bald guy, and asks what he wanted. But he's not alone, because a bunch of bullies show up and surround the kid. The big guy tells him to go outside, so he won't get embarrassed in front of everyone. Our hero lets out a sigh, totally tired of dealing with so many assholes at once. The scene suddenly cuts to an abandoned warehouse, their secret hideout. The place reeks of cigarettes, and the kid realizes bullies are the same everywhere. Then we find out Jusuk is sitting there, calling him a fake Jong-woo. The leader asks where he got the nerve to face an elite guy when he's just a nobody, but our hero doesn't even flinch, and asks why that would matter so much. And the answer's right there, with the bully foaming with rage at the newbie's audacity. The asshole calls the kid an insect, saying he'll never be like the real badasses. Jusuk says he can't hit him, so he tells the nobodies to do the job. The bully gives the order to start, and one goon comes in trying to kick him. But our hero dodges insanely easily, making the idiot kiss the floor. The other nobodies get mad and rush him all at once. But the kid's a beast, dodging everything and laughing at how trash they are. The huge chubby guy loses patience and tries to scare the hero one last time. And the answer's right there. He eats a knee and goes out cold. The big guy is done for, leaving the rest of the crew scared shitless. Our hero asks if nobody else is coming, staring down the goons left there. Joseok is pure rage, watching his plan to rough him up fail hard. So the kid gives a cocky little grin, telling them to come at him for real now. The blonde is walking down the hallway, but she can't forget the kid's smack talk. She remembers the hero telling it straight that status doesn't mean anything there. Meanwhile, the goons say the hero's getting taken out today for sure. Ayun tries to act like she doesn't care, but her conscience is weighing on her too much. So she takes off running, trying to stop the worst from happening. The scene cuts to the hideout, where the hero stares at the gang, bored. Jusok is totally losing it, telling the rest of the gang to beat the kid up. But the goons are frozen in fear, seeing their buddy all messed up. Our hero looks at the bully with a creepy stare, totally wrecking his tough guy act. He says the punk's strength is pathetic, like a preschool kid. Then Jusok panics, telling the extras to use their skills already. The extras get scared, saying they could get expelled from school. But the bully doesn't care, telling the bunch of punks to shut up. Then we find out he's using a stolen bracelet like the elite ones. The kid accesses the forbidden system, unlocking a D-rank combat skill, and out of nowhere a sick trident appears in his hand, called Black Spear Trias. Jusok gets all cocky, promising he's going to humiliate our hero now. But the badass still looks bored, asking if he even knows how to use that. The bully cracks up laughing, asking if the kid went blind or crazy. Our hero lets out a sigh, grabbing a broom like it's some elite weapon, and the answer's right there. He says summoning a weapon is the most basic thing ever. But things get tense when he questions using skills outside the dungeons. The scene suddenly cuts to the teacher's lounge. One of them asks how an extra from Class E had the guts to stand up to Jusok. But then we find out the truth. The kid has anything but zero talent. Turns out he was marked as out of evaluation because he was too strong for the test. And the answer's right there. Only the legend Gokhan Anshe had that scary status. But then the question is why the badass ended up in the worst class in the school. So we find out it was the president's order, so he wouldn't draw attention. Right then the blonde girl shows up, saying the MC is in danger. Jusok attacks with the trident, but the badass blocks everything with the wooden handle. The bully is shook, seeing his D-rank power doesn't even tickle him. And the answer's right there. The hero blocks deadly blows using nothing but trash. Jusok freaks out because his magic weapon is getting clapped by a broken broom. Then our hero starts roasting him, explaining that swinging like a maniac isn't fighting. The punk foams with rage and yells, wanting to know what a scholarship kid knows about throwing hands. Our hero explains the trident comes from a monster that controls shadows. And the answer's right there. The punk waves the weapon around like an idiot. Then we find out that power was a gift, so he could become elite. But having an expensive item doesn't mean anything if the kid's a total mess. Our hero uses the broom and disarms the bully, sending the trident flying. The system says the weapon was disconnected, leaving Jusok not understanding anything. Then the badass picks the trident up off the ground, promising to teach him how to fight for real. The scene suddenly cuts to total darkness, like it turned to night. The extras panic hard when they realize their shadows are gone. Jusok starts shaking in terror, seeing the hero's aura completely changed. Then the kid awakens beast mode, turning into a monster made of pure darkness. The bully can't believe that's the same weapon he always used. The bully gets so terrified he ends up peeing himself from fear. And the answer's right there. The hero controls total darkness. But the system warns that the weapon was sealed by time. But Jusok is already totally done, crying and drooling on the floor. Our hero gives a few little kicks to wake up the bunch of punks. Then we find out the bully turned into a puddle of tears. The kid stares at the aggressor, asking if attacking civilians is dangerous. The extra confirms it, shaking with fear, getting a harsh scolding. Then our hero threatens the guy, saying he's going to get taken out. The scene changes and the protagonist is with the other extras. He tells them to stop right there. He stares down the big guy in the group and tells the kid to hit him. Our hero tells the chubby guy to hit him with all his strength, to get this over with. He says he doesn't want rumors, he just wants to settle the mess fast. Then the giant extra lands a heavy punch, sending the kid flying far away. Our hero hits the ground all messed up, staining the floor red. The teacher shows up freaking out, thinking the kid is done for. While the bullies get called to the principal's office, the teacher tells Ahyun to take the hero straight to the school infirmary. Our hero complains this new body is weak, feeling totally wrecked. He tells the girl to hurry up to stop the bleeding. Ahyun is really suspicious and asks who the kid really is. But our hero tries to play it off, pretending he's just some random extra. But the blonde girl doesn't buy it, saying she saw everything while hiding. She was totally shocked, watching the badass use forbidden skills. Ahyun says he could easily be Class A, but our hero couldn't care less. He tells her to forget everything she saw. She apologizes for treating him badly, but the protagonist just wants to get to the infirmary already. Ahyun asks the kid for help, saying she needs to get into the student council. She explains she needs a sponsor, or the other candidates will scare her off. But nobody wants to help a nobody with no family, because they're afraid of the rich kids. The blonde asks if he'll take the position, but the badass says he's got better things to do. But she won't give up, promising to introduce him to Go Hyunche, which gets the big guy all excited. He asks how she'd do that since she got kicked out of her house. Her plan was that if she got into the student council, the meeting would happen. Our hero's already exhausted, saying he'll go to the infirmary alone. But the poor guy ends up passing out. The scene switches to an emergency meeting. They complain that the bully used skills at school, demanding immediate expulsion. And the teachers warn that this time, the jerk won't get off unscathed. The principal wants to know what Wusik thinks about this mess. Wusik asks if Jusek and his friends went after the protagonist, and the girl confirms, saying our hero got beat up. But the old man lets out a laugh. Then he starts quoting the rules against using magic, and Wusik declares the jerk expelled. But out of nowhere a teacher interrupts, saying punishing the aggressor like that is an abuse of power. The old man doesn't get it, and the teacher explains that teens fighting is normal these days. But teacher Yubin fires back right away, yelling that it almost turned into something serious. The teacher sucks up to the bully, swearing the kid is a genius. But even so, he reminds them rules apply to everyone. Then the suck-up suggests just a tiny suspension as punishment. The president buys it, ending the conversation for today. But when everyone leaves, the teacher calls the minister. He explains it all ended in a suspension. The teacher also says he'll take care of our hero in the next test that's coming up. Our hero's been at the school for 3 days, but still hasn't seen this Yunche. He complains that Class E is full of extras, and there are no interesting classes. But out of nowhere, the kid gets slapped by those shameless bullies. The gang demands stuff from the kid, treating the badass like trash. They complain because the hero forgot the bread. The fat guy tells the newbie to follow them. While the guys are in the hallway, the protagonist goes, "Yo." The bullies immediately hunch over, begging forgiveness for hitting him too hard. They explain they were just following orders, to make the act feel real. The dude Junwoo almost kills them just by showing his aura. The badass asks for info, but the chubby guy says it's impossible to see the girl. Our big guy asks if they really hadn't found anything. Then we find out she's only close to some guy named Kim Jong-yun. Our hero wants to know where this Kim Jong-yun is, trying to get something useful. But the extras are more lost than a blind guy in a shootout, giving terrible answers. The kid gets pissed and tells the useless guys to get out of there right now. Walking down the hallway all stressed out, the badass runs into a cocky blonde girl. She comes right in with the truth, warning him his plan was going to fail miserably. We find out the target is important, an official member of the student council. Our hero doesn't get why it's such a big deal, treating the guy like nobody. She explains the council only accepts elite people, leaving the MC surprised. The scene shows they're already official hunters, even taking on really dangerous missions. On top of that, their parents run everything and can even make teachers shut up. The blonde warns that those people are on another level, while the kid asks if there's another way. She takes the chance to beg him to help her get into the council, but the badass refuses right away. The girl doesn't understand why, but our hero remembers she herself said only geniuses or heirs get in. The protagonist starts cracking up in her face, thinking the offer is a joke. Suddenly the mood gets heavy, and he warns that his training makes anyone drop dead. He tells her to give up on impossible dreams, but the blonde drops the bomb, saying she'd rather kick the bucket than be left out. With her eyes sparkling, she swears she can handle any torture if it means getting strong. Kim Jun-woo says break time's over and dips, ignoring the spoiled little blonde's yelling. But she won't give up and keeps going, trying to convince our hero any way she can. So he thinks this crazy girl might actually be useful for something, and gives a little smirk. The scene suddenly cuts to the classroom, where the teacher is giving an announcement. She says the monthly test is coming up, and it'll be focused only on theory subjects. But some guy named Cha Janmun barges in, interrupting everything. Then we find out the rules changed. The paper test is gone, replaced with a real practical exam, and worst of all, it'll be in a real dungeon. The little blonde is shocked by the news. The teacher freaks out at the idea, but the smug guy tells her to calm down right now. She says Class E can't handle it, but he says the decision's already been made, and he uses some fake inclusion talk. The extras are already starting to sweat, knowing this little game could cost a lot. The kid realizes something's off, because the class doesn't even know the basics. He gets that throwing newbies into a dungeon is basically asking for them to get wiped. The arrogant extra says everyone can quit, but they'll have to deal with extra classes. But the trap is for the special student. If he quits, he'll be expelled from school. Our hero figures the teacher didn't set this up alone, suspecting some big shot is behind it. The scene cuts to Washik's office. He's scared shitless, apologizing to our hero for not stopping the exam. Washik just stands there whining, but our hero isn't here for the sob story. We find out they use that fake inclusion excuse, all to screw the kid over. So the badass decides to take the exam since he needs to find that Goenche. But he's not going in unarmed, demanding the old man hand over some kind of combat item. But the old guy tries to play it off, swearing he doesn't have anything stored there. Then the hero makes a clean move, grabbing the liar's arm. Suddenly the smug guy's act falls apart, revealing a ring shining on his finger. That object is none other than the legendary and super stolen Patelis ring. The hero admires the Patelis ring, but Woshik reveals he kept the piece for 50 years, just out of habit. The scene shows a quick flashback, revealing the old leader was the real badass. But the kid kills the sentimental moment, telling the old man to hand over the jewel already. The president hands over the ring all nervous, while our hero gives a little smirk. Woshik asks if he can handle it, and the MC says for a test with a bunch of nobodies, this buff is already enough. Then the old man asks the hero not to stand out so much there, but the captain tells this punk not to give him reasons. The scene suddenly cuts to a special room, where the teacher walks in. He finds Go Tunche at the computer, surprised she's there. The extra tries to intimidate her, but the redhead totally ignores him. Then he throws a document on the table saying she'll be the official evaluator. Go Nuchi stops typing right away, hearing about the newbie's practical exam. She thinks the idea is ridiculous, since the kids haven't even started the semester. The teacher asks if the badass wants to take part, but the redhead says no without thinking twice. The smug guy still asks what he's supposed to do. Then, the girl suggests canceling the test since it'd be better for everyone. The teacher yells at the girl, accusing her of thinking she's above the masters. He throws it in her face that he helped her in the past, but the little redhead says the one who judged him was her grandpa. Then another extra walks into the room out of nowhere. He says it's been a while and asks what they were doing there. The teacher says they need a guy to evaluate the exams. This new kid offers to take the spot since the redhead was busy. The teacher accepts the offer, even knowing this guy is nothing but trouble. Our smug guy leaves while saying he needs to fill out the paperwork and turn it in. When the teacher leaves, he says he's not famous like the redhead. The girl asks why he decided to help. He says he just wants to keep an eye on things so that weird incident doesn't happen. On top of that, the kid admits he's curious about how a newbie will do. Hearing that coming out of the kid's mouth makes her think. He reveals this freshman humiliated a bully and is exempt from tests, and he even wonders what kind of person he is. The scene cuts to the courtyard, where classes C and D are gathered. But the elite from classes A and B show up too, trying to show off. In the middle of all those people, our hero notices his class is empty. But the cocky blonde girl shows up out of nowhere, starting to stretch for the fight. The badass is shocked and asks what this crazy girl is planning to do. She says straight up that she came to take the test, and doesn't plan on being a burden. But Junwoo loses his patience, warning that a dungeon isn't a place to mess around. Still, the blonde would rather get taken out than miss her chance to get into the council. The protagonist gets furious, but the mood gets cut off by a general announcement. The laid-back professor explains the safety rules, telling the bunch of extras to stay calm. He explains the challenge will be in an easy dungeon, splitting everyone into 8 groups. After an hour of pointless talk, the Class A elite will open the paths. Then we find out who's going to be watching everything. An important member of the student council. This Kim Jong-un guy shows up with a big smile. Our hero recognizes the name right away, remembering this guy is a big deal. But the real problem shows up now, because Junwoo and the blonde girl ended up without a team. Because of that, they get thrown in with the leftovers from Class D. The bullies who got beat up before show up again, trying to act like nothing happened. The blonde girl just watches the fake act, thinking those guys' performance is a joke. The extras show up already trying to intimidate, pretending the kid doesn't even exist. The blonde guy tries to apologize, but the badass says he'd rather these useless guys stay away. Then the protagonist asks about the monsters. One of the kids hands over a tablet, but suddenly the kid starts doing this little dance, saying he's a fake Junwoo. Man, I didn't understand anything just now either. The scene switches to the dungeon entrance, where that Jong-yoon guy gives the orders. The laid-back professor says all they have to do is defeat the boss for the exam to finally end. Finally, the group faces the portal, ready not to get taken out. They go into the cave and our hero thinks it's all a classic cliché. But out of nowhere, a bunch of huge red rats show up and scare the hell out of them. The extras panic, telling everyone to get ready to fight right now. Then they activate the support system, trying not to get wrecked by the beasts. The badass just watches, wanting to see if this bunch is good for anything. One blonde guy uses wind magic, but it looks like he's just blowing dust around. Another kid goes for a slingshot, acting like he's some pro sniper. There's even a bully who goes into berserker mode, screaming like a maniac. But the fight is a total mess with rats flying everywhere. The big guy almost got taken out by a rodent, embarrassing himself hard. Junwoo realizes they're using their skills with no brain, wasting all their energy. They're attacking blindly and our hero is already losing patience. Then the scene focuses on the blonde girl, getting her azure flame ready. The big rats got wiped out instantly under the powerful flames. Hein is the real deal, controlling everything precisely, and our hero praises the blonde girl. The extras are already huffing from exhaustion, complaining the dungeon feels endless. Suddenly a giant rat jumps out of the dark to take a student out, but the kid is faster, activating the busted power of his legendary ring. He uses an explosive flick, making the monster get wiped out on the spot. Then the badass chews them out, telling the slackers to stop wasting mana. But the other students are stubborn, accusing the hero of trying to steal the points. Junwoo gets pissed seeing this bunch of idiots doesn't understand the danger. Meanwhile, the others are already almost dying for no. Our hero notices a bunch of weird things happening at the same time, and thinks the only useful person there was Hein. There were things worrying him, so he goes to talk to the professor, warning that the dungeon's vibe is weird. He explains the monsters are weak, but the number of them is way too crazy. He demands they stop the mission now so nobody ends up getting hurt. The professor just thinks the kid's being cocky, and says he's the one who decides things. Our hero yells that could lead to a serious accident. The laid-back professor makes a show of it, asking who there is too tired to keep going. But the boys just avoid eye contact. The professor says he could quit, but he couldn't take anyone with him. He warns our hero not to get in the way, or he'll get kicked out of the exam right now. The veteran shows up telling our hero to relax. The big shot gives a little smile, promising to help if things get ugly. Finally, the group reaches the final door, celebrating like they already won. Our hero lets out a sigh, seeing the others are scared to death. So he decides to open the door by himself, but the blonde girl shows up to help. The blonde girl asks if the tough guy is laughing at other people's fear, swearing she's brave. But when they open the gate, the vibe gets weird, making the hero realize something's off. The scene shows the dungeon boss, but the big beast has been dead for a while. The extras show up right behind, shocked to see the monster is already dead. So the veteran checks the data, confirming the place should still be super active. Our hero decides to examine the corpse, noticing signs of a fight that wasn't theirs. Then we find out the truth, someone from outside messed with the whole exam. The kid senses real danger, yelling for the bunch of useless guys to fall back, but the others just stand around, not getting why they need to run out of nowhere. Our hero yells for the group to get out, warning there was interference in the dungeon. A creepy huge monster appears out of nowhere, ready to wreck everyone. We find out an invading boss kicked out the weaker one to take over everything. The extras freak out, realizing this thing is a really high rank. Even the cocky teacher is shaking, seeing the situation got out of control. This is the rarest thing to happen, turning the exam into a real nightmare. The blonde girl is out of breath from fear, while the tough guy braces for the worst. The three-tailed beast is green rank. Our hero realizes a monster like that in a weak dungeon is a total disaster. The bunch of extras panics, running desperately toward the exit. But the giant feline doesn't waste time, leaping in to take someone out right now. But the veteran Zhang Yun steps up front, telling everyone to stay behind him. Suddenly the support system gets approved, unlocking official hunter abilities. Then we find out he has access to C rank, getting ready for a heavy counterattack. Even so, the cocky guy admits he can't handle it alone, begging Zhang Yu for help. The kid doesn't understand anything. While the veteran admits he investigated the newbie, he drops the secret in front of everyone, revealing the hero is exempt from evaluations. The scene switches to a flashback. President Woshik explains that measuring power is just bureaucracy, so he can act fairly. If the tough guy keeps quiet, the stuck-up masters will just ignore it and let it slide. The old man gives a little smile, saying nobody cares about that boring admin paperwork. Our hero lets out a sigh, regretting that he softened up. The two start arguing about the strategy. Out of nowhere, the feline lets out that roar. The veteran spots an opening and decides it's time to react, and then he launches his attack. The feline lets out that nasty roar, trying to intimidate everyone with the scream. Zhang Hyun charges the monster and lands the hit right on its face. The guys are stunned by how badass the veteran is and think the MC is just hopping around back and forth. One jerk gets really annoyed with the situation, promising he'll pull something soon. In the middle of the beatdown, the veteran gets confused by how easy it is. The veteran turns around and realizes it's the newbie helping. Distracted, the monster takes the chance to pounce on the veteran. At the last second, Zhang Huo uses his skill. The veteran realizes the tough guy was stopping the attacks. The kid thinks of an almost impossible strategy he saw in the manual. Impressed, he wonders what the kid's real identity is. But the tough guy decides to focus on the fight, then jumps and drives the attack right into the monster's head. Meanwhile, the suit guy gives that creepy little grin. The jerk is already plotting a way to get Zhang Huo kicked out of the school. But then the veteran suddenly yells, because the beast didn't go down. He shouts for the tough guy to be careful, because the danger isn't over. An extra jumps in out of nowhere, trying to steal the kill to get points. That idiot says the finishing blow is his, with a grin. Suddenly, the feline opens its eye and screams right in the guy's face. Zhang Huo gets pissed at the stupidity, calling the extra an idiot. Zhang Huo shoves the kid but ends up losing his arm. The veteran is left on the ground totally wrecked, while the extras scream in desperation. Everyone starts running so they don't end up dead. The blonde girl panics, with no idea how to save Zhang Huan. Out of nowhere, the feline appears in front of her, showing things just got worse. Huan tries to stay calm, remembering fire is its weak point, but her body freezes from fear, stopping the girl from reacting at all. The beast lets out that sinister roar to take the girl out. But Zhang Huan shows up at lightning speed, getting his special skill ready. With an explosive punch, the badass smashes the monster's face without mercy. The girl just stands there with her mouth open, watching the beating the kid handed out. The feline collapses to the ground, and our hero walks up to the veteran's body. Zhang Huan scares the crybaby, telling him to stop being a wimp. Without wasting time, our hero orders the chubby guy to help. On his own, the kid admits he messed up by taking too long to react. Out of nowhere, the monster gets back up. Zhang Huan dodges the attack and uses his skill, not giving it a break. The kid lands a bunch of hits. The extras are left with their mouths open. The teacher starts sweating cold, and he asks what the protagonist's secret was, because the badass is at veteran level. He notices the kid is using an old weapon, something nobody uses anymore. The instructor yells that this is dangerous. Our hero stays chill, already knowing every item like that has a price. The penalty is brutal. It can even make the user drop dead. He insists on those old weapons, because they're way too overpowered. Modern gear is safe, but it makes hunters soft. Out of nowhere, the feline shows up behind the guy. A hyena screams in desperation for the hero to move. The beast throws a swipe, but the badass had already dodged. After doing a full 360 spin, he smacks the monster. The dust starts to settle. Junwoo just stands there chill, while the monster keeps growling. The feline starts shaking all over after the penalty kicks in. The badass explains the feline becomes invincible if someone feels even a little fear. This gem has a weird rule, where whoever shakes first is done for. With the beast defeated, the kid runs to check on the veteran. Junwoo notices Junghaeun lost a lot of blood, needing urgent help. He demands the instructor's radio, wanting to alert HQ. The instructor hands the radio to the kid. Our hero calls HQ saying the brawl is finally over, and asks for help, because someone was injured. Our hero tells the teacher to inform the guardian, but the teacher demands to know who he was. Out of nowhere, the badass loses patience, slapping the jerk across the face. On the ground, he complains. The annoyed protagonist asks if the instructor knows how to do his job and tells him to shut up. The group finally leaves the dungeon, while the medics take the injured away. Woosik shows up out of nowhere asking if everything's okay. The badass says nobody died. He explains this whole thing is going to reach a lot of people's ears, and go say Ksu Hidu. The kid gets furious at the teacher who threw the students into total danger, and asks if that makes any sense, warning he won't just stand by. The scene switches to the office where Woosik questions the jerk about the exam. The teacher says he did the exam to help the class. Woosik lets out a sigh, pissed at that BS, and yells that he already knows about the plan against the badass. Cha Ju-min starts sweating cold, shocked by Woo-sik coming at him so directly, and tries to calm down, asking if there's someone even worse behind it. Then he starts lying, swearing he followed the manual correctly. The old man punches the table, yelling that changing the exam was stupid. Woo-sik says the rookies almost died, but Ju-min defends himself, using the protagonist's talent as his answer. The jerk keeps pushing the accident story, trying to dodge the blame. With that little smirk, Cha Ju-min reminds him the boss approved everything too. The president closes his eyes, deciding to drop it for now. To wrap it up, he demands the report and the cameras to assess the damage. The jerk gets ready to leave the office, but Woo-sik tells him to stop, wanting to make one thing clear. The president admits his biggest fear is the Jung-woo from back then. Woo-sik keeps it real, warning that if there's another screw-up he won't help. Leaving the room, the teacher tries to take a deep breath. He quickly calls the minister, saying they'll handle everything internally. On the phone, the two talk about the veteran's father, assuring him the tough guy is fine. The guy on the phone says Jung-woo should be very grateful. Then the jerk apologizes, because the badass's level went beyond what they expected. That call questions whether the kid really has the talent to be there, so he decides to get straight to the point. The minister explains the candidates for the council's first year had already been decided. The jerk agrees with everything, promising he'll solve the problem. As soon as he hangs up, the teacher sighs. He admits the badass has already surpassed the level of a lot of veterans, but the bastard won't give up, swearing he'll take the kid down no matter what. The scene switches to the hospital, where our hero is being treated. The blonde girl makes fun of him, thinking the hero is a total wuss. Jung-woo realizes his body changed, because using the item came at a heavy cost. The badass complains about the blonde girl, who won't stop annoying the hell out of him. He even asks if she was serious about becoming a council member, explaining that once you join the council, he won't have time to help her anymore. Suddenly someone pulls the curtain open, saying getting in there is a pain. Hyun asks if the upperclassman was okay. Jung-hyun opens the room curtain, laughing even though he's totally messed up. The two say the extra bailed, leaving the academy after the exam. Jung-hyun gets pissed at the coward, who disappeared without even saying thanks. Our hero thinks the upperclassman is way too optimistic, considering how bad he got wrecked. The dark-haired guy remembers his dad's advice, saying the secret is not getting yourself killed. Our hero admits the guy's solid, since he sacrificed his arm for the newbie. The blonde girl takes the chance to ask something, asking about that so-called difficulty. He tells it straight about the council, warning that getting in there is going to be rough. The blonde girl asks if it's because she's in Class E, but the dark-haired guy says it's something else, and asks if the two of them know about that creepy parents association. That group isn't normal, acting like a mafia inside the school, and explains that 5 powerful old guys run everything there. That was a group of influential people. Hyun asks if the upperclassman is part of the clique, but he denies it. Our hero realizes this mafia deletes the unwanted. The badass asks if students have already been taken out. Jung-hyun goes quiet and tells the blonde girl it's better to give up on the council, but she refuses the advice, yelling that innocent people could even get taken out. She even complains to our hero, thinking this school bullshit is absurd. The badass thinks about the corruption, but focuses on the urgency of reviving Gigantiana. Jun-woo says he doesn't have time, because he needs to find this Go-onshae, but the redhead they were talking about ends up showing up right there mid-convo. The hottie Go-onshae walks into the room. The kid can't believe Locke just knocked on the door. He gets up from the bed and says hi. She just stares at him with a pissed-off face and ignores him. The blonde girl remembers that 2 years ago her sister told her to quit, but she says she already enrolled. Our hero can tell there's drama, and figures the blonde's desire for the council is pure hate. Without saying anything else, Onshae decides to leave, and the girl says her sister's doing awful. The redhead asks if her sister's okay, but the blonde gets mad, telling her to stop pretending she cares. Jun-yoon tries to break the ice, to see if the mood gets a little better, but he realizes the first impression was a total disaster. The scene changes to where the redhead asks what he wanted with her. Jun-yoon gets confused, not knowing how to start talking to her. He thinks about acting like an overexcited fan, but quickly realizes that'd be a really dumb idea. The redhead asks about the dungeon, and Jun-yoon says the upperclassman did all the work, but she's not stupid, saying Jun-yoon would never beat a boss like that alone. The hero pokes at her, asking if she doesn't think she's a bit full of herself, but she asks if he's trying to provoke her. Our hero plays it off right away, saying he just wants to be friends and asks about the council, but she sees through it, thinking the newbie just wants to climb the ladder for selfish reasons. But the badass cuts it off, saying he couldn't care less about some elite position. She demands he keep her little sister out of this mess, but the MC says the two of them are the same, stubborn, and they don't listen to anyone, and says Ah-hyun is the person who wants to join the council the most, then brings up some unfinished business with Grandpa. The redhead completely loses it, slamming the hero against the wall with zero mercy. She screams demanding the truth, asking if Ah-hyun asked for revenge or some favor, so the two start throwing down. Our hero builds momentum and counterattacks. They keep going in a hand-to-hand fight with Jung-woo dodging her attacks. He realizes she was different from the last time he met her. Her speed had increased too, and seeing her like that made him think. While he kept dodging her attacks, he takes the chance, grabs his bandage, and throws it in the girl's face. Then he throws her against the wall, and the redhead asks if that wasn't against the rules. But our protagonist doesn't see much point in that line. The redhead compliments our hero. Still, she wants to know something else now, since he was different, and she keeps talking about the subjugation. Then finally the redhead decides to listen to what he has to say. The hero explains he needs her to bring him some weapons, but she says that was impossible. But since the two of them were making a lot of noise, the nurses and some other staff ended up showing up to break up the mess. The nurse says she can't be causing a scene in there. The redhead pulls her hand away from him and bolts, and says she'd rather they don't run into each other again. Junwoo fires back saying that'll be hard. After all, she was Go Seok-doo's granddaughter. The scene switches to Jonghyun asking about the conversation, but the kid admits it didn't go well, and asks about Yoonchae, trying to understand the beef with the director. But the older guy explains the relationship is cold, more like a formal contract. Junwoo concludes they're not a normal family, and says he asked a personal favor, but the girl shut it all down. So the older guy explains she never asked for anything, because the old man is scary as hell, and also says it's not something he should be talking about there. Our hero suggests giving the girl some money, but his friend cracks up. In the end, a new bait shows up, something that'll actually interest her. The older guy says Hyun has to get out of there. He explains the redhead hates the blonde, wanting her gone. Our hero realizes the redhead is quick. Jun-hyun suggests convincing their classmate to give up, but the kid tells him to shut up right away, and sees someone leaving. The blonde ends up alone on the bench, thinking about life. She remembers they want her gone. The girl says she only wanted the advice to get revenge on the old man, and admits that without talent, even graduating turned into an impossible mission. The whole plan depended on Junwoo, because the kid's a scary prodigy. She accepts that the badass isn't going to help anymore, and decides to face the mess alone, without asking for help. All of a sudden, the badass shows up, leaving the girl in shock. Our hero arrives and asks if she's going home. Then he takes the chance to ask if the blonde is going to quit school. Junwoo gives a sly little grin, seeing that she was going to try to dodge it. The badass admits he had a clash with Inche, admitting how strong she is, and decides it's time to change strategy to deal with this. So he cuts the small talk, moving on to the idea of starting to mess with her. The blonde thinks he's joking, but the protagonist focuses on finding the rival's weak spot. He points a finger in her face, saying the girl is the redhead's weak spot. After all, that so-called heiress is elite, the granddaughter of an influential old man in the association. Junwoo asks why a top tier like that would care so much about some extra from Class E. Dude keeps it real, warning her she'll never reach the elite's level. Junwoo explains her being at the academy threatens that spoiled heiress's future, and suggests she could steal that throne, making the girl even choke. The girl complains the talk is crazy, but the kid tells her to make it happen, and promises he'll turn her into a beast by finding the redhead's weakness fast. But he asks why she isn't confident. The blonde explodes, yelling that she can do it. The protagonist ends the talk right there, standing up to go on his way, and warns that tomorrow's training will be brutal, telling her to stay sharp, and also explains the plan is for her to become a candidate before the second semester starts, saying he's going to take down the association's old men, one by one. With that said, the protagonist is almost leaving, but the blonde gets all emotional, thanking Aura Monster with tears in her eyes. The scene switches to a sushi restaurant. We see a bunch of people talking about high-level stuff, which I'm not even going to waste my time explaining. Out of nowhere, the smug professor walks in, apologizing for being late. That was the mobster's banquet, a meeting. The smug professor decides to get straight to the point, talking about the admission process. Then he pulls the documents out of his briefcase, telling everyone to sign the paperwork already. The first big shot is Jung-hoon, a filthy rich CEO. Right after that, we've got Lee Kyung-sik, another influential old man who runs the media. Another elite tough guy shows up, the boss of a famous guild. We've also got this rich lady, and to top it off, the smug guy introduces this scary minister. The bastard lets the big shots sign at their own pace, asking if anyone has questions. One rich guy brings up the badass who soloed the exam. Everyone gets scared the kid will steal the spots. The smug guy says he doesn't show interest, but the main worry is their heirs getting pushed aside. That minister stares the professor down and demands an answer. Cha Jung-hoon swears he's got everything under control, promising to block any new candidate, and guarantees the heirs will be chosen. Back at school, the routine seems normal for everyone, but everyone crowds around our main guy, even asking if the kid was okay. The protagonist doesn't understand any of this mess, and then he stares at the notice board. This final ranking shows his name at the top, humiliating the Class A elite. The badass loses his patience, telling everyone to get lost with that creepy stare. Ignoring the crowd, he walks straight to the blonde girl's seat. The badass thinks the perfect score is weird. The blonde girl breathes a sigh of relief, realizing the results weren't rigged. Our hero changes the subject, asking if she's training properly. This kid focuses on physical strength, saying that without power nothing works. The blonde girl asks how he's going to prepare for the final exams, since the final test changed. The badass thinks this system is super messed up, questioning the point of this internal fight. And he realizes things got easy, because he only has to crush one opponent. He focuses on Jusuk, the rich kid protected by the association bigwigs, and he figures out that teacher set a trap to benefit the bully. Then he explains the scores, saying the bully barely made the cutoff. The blonde girl sees the challenge, realizing she just needs to crush her rival head-on. Our hero tells her to be more confident, leaving the poor girl with no choice. Junwoo warns her about fight training, telling her to get info from her friends. The girl makes that crappy face, admitting she doesn't have any friends. The badass gets all awkward, getting scolded for also being an outcast. Our hero tries to list some friends, bringing up Woosik so he won't look bad. But the protagonist ends up having a flashback that leaves him thinking. The blonde girl asks what happened, but looking out the window he says it's nothing. Scene change. The upperclassman is bored, deciding to watch videos to chill out. Someone suddenly walks into the room, grabbing our upperclassman's attention. The dark-haired guy jumps, realizing his dad came to visit. The man shows up with a basket of fruit, saying he left work early, and asks about his health, hearing that the kid isn't gonna die. To motivate him, his dad brings up Grandpa, who got through everything even when he was totally wrecked, and he even remembers Grandpa saying, out of nowhere, his dad reveals a secret, pulling something out of his jacket. The old man hands the paper to his son, saying it's proof the association was involved. He even begs the kid to take a look, but the kid remembers his dad got kicked out and asks him to end this once and for all, and yells that they lost everything, demanding his dad do something. Jong-yoon tells the old man to accept the loss, to give up the dream of being a hunter, and demands silence, hating hearing stories about Grandpa, and says nobody's gonna believe a story from 40 years ago. Our hero asks if they found anything, but they say the classes are clean. The chubby guy admits he's scared of the elite, because going up against Class A and B is rough. Our MC realizes the extras are weak, failing the council's mission. Even so, the badass pays for the snack, but the guys won't accept it. Junwoo tells them to just take the money already, and forces the extra to take the bill, joking about his own arm. He also says the cash covers the snacks, so nobody feels awkward. And the guys are totally shocked in the hallway, not understanding what's going on. The protagonist gives a sly little smile, remembering when he was poor and happy. Now he focuses on the main course, swearing he'll crush the bully. He focuses on the beatdown test, wanting to widen the gap on his rivals. He also knows the bully is weak, but he's worried about the association's drama. Suddenly someone calls the kid by name. The upperclassman shows up, all smiles. Junwoo asks about getting discharged from the hospital, but the dark-haired guy says he just came to handle some stuff, and asks about helping the blonde girl, but the badass dodges it. The kid confirms the plan is fight training, focusing on the exam. But the dark-haired guy comments about the academy's restrictions, making things tense. Our hero confirms he's going to stand up to the association, not afraid of the danger. Laughing it off, the kid says they'll figure it out together. Junyoon smiles in relief, remembering everyone made it out alive from that mess. A creepy memory pops up, showing everyone running away. Our hero must have saved everyone, the upperclassman thought, looking back. The mood shifts all of a sudden, leaving Junwoo confused on the stairs. Junyoon makes an offer, inviting the badass to train at his gym. The scene changes to the council room, where the lazy professor decides to be honest. Junwoo freaks out, hearing he's in serious danger now. The instructor says our hero is gonna run, pissing off the bully. He reveals the badass skipped the test, and says the kid soloed a monster by himself. That makes the rich kid mad. Junwoo tries to use his dad's name, but hears that protection has its limits. Junyoon warns about the danger, saying our hero's about to get shown up by the rich kid. Then he complains, demanding a guarantee he'll get into the group. Junyoon hands over the leaked test, telling him to memorize everything without leaving a trace. And he also says he's already got a plan ready. Soon the teacher pulls out a secret item, showing it off. Finding out the thing is rank B leaves the kid in shock. Junwook notices the insane power, comparing it to the school's level, telling him to use the item in the fight. The cocky guy guarantees the win, and with a grin the rich kid feels the busted cheat. But he questions where the item came from, knowing it belonged to the master's father. The cocky guy mentions an old job keeping that mysterious vibe. He says he brought backup, bringing in a veteran for the training. The bully is surprised to see Go Einchi walked into the room. The teacher explains he made a special request. He says the redhead is going to take care of our bully. The hottie agrees to handle the bully, following the cocky instructor's orders. The scene changes with the badass telling her to focus on training. The girl gets rocked, begging the kid to wait. Our hero ignores the complaint, saying this training is for real. The blonde demands to learn skills, hating fighting with just her fists. Our hero lets out a sigh, telling the blonde to fight using her skills already, and tells the girl to hit with everything, doubting she'll go down from one punch. The girl's scared she'll get kicked out of the academy, but the protagonist tells her to cut the crap. The system unlocks access to powers, making the blonde toss her gloves to the floor. The girl ignites blue flames, deciding she doesn't care what happens anymore. The blonde switches tactics, going in close with the flames. Our hero sees what she's trying to do, dodging every hit like it's nothing, and he takes advantage of her slip-up, landing a heavy smack that drops her on the ground. The girl looks confused, not understanding why she missed so much. Junwoo explains the fundamentals, saying technique alone doesn't win fights, but he keeps it real, pointing out her movement mistakes. The blonde thinks relying on technique is normal, but Junwoo shuts down that dumb logic. Junwoo tells her to focus on the attack, not the power, leaving the girl on the ground not getting it, and he decides she'll learn the hard way, with that little grin like he's about to pull something. Then he starts roughing her up, teaching her to watch every step the enemy takes. The girl tries to defend herself while getting beat, hearing she needs to force an opening to react. The badass says he wants to see how long she can take the beating. Ayeon focuses on the fight, wanting to prove she's worth something. Then she throws a crazy kick. Junwoo ends up losing his balance, so the girl activates the explosive palm, rushing in with everything. Our hero dodges and counters the poor thing. The girl collapses in the ring, feeling the weight of the hit she took. The kid says the secret is the opening, because a single attack never works, and he reinforces that the basics are everything. But then he starts wondering if the girl really was trying to kill him. The girl asks a question, wanting to know who he is. Our hero finds the doubt weird, while hearing that his talent makes no sense. The blonde asks if the protagonist is a secret agent, but Jungwoo tells her to rest. Jungwoo shows up at the gym all cheerful. The dark-haired guy asks if his partner is okay, seeing the girl collapsed in the ring. The girl gives a thumbs up, even though she's totally wrecked. The veteran remembers the old training days, saying he used to get beat down a lot by his dad there. Our hero asks about the veteran's future, leaving the dark-haired guy speechless. Jungwoo explains he needs to graduate, even if he's not in the student council. Being a hunter became a far-off dream, since the limitation cost him big. The badass says nothing's impossible. He says fighting with one arm is totally doable, keeping it real. The dark-haired guy thinks it's just comfort talk, but the protagonist reveals his own experience. The kid talks about a hunter who lost an arm but kept going. Training with just his left hand, the guy became a monster, surpassing his old level. The veteran realizes the line is identical to the hero's advice. Our hero asks if that master's name was Kim Chung-hoon, but the veteran reveals the legend is his grandpa. Then the scene cuts to the training field. The bully tests the power and is shocked. Seeing rank B is insane. With that little grin, he swears our hero's screwed now. The veteran shows up out of nowhere at the training, telling the cocky guy to chill out, and says that's just a test, even knowing about his hate for the badass, and tells him not to overdo the strength, banning the use of that secret technique. The rich kid brags all confident, thinking he won't even need to try. The instructor watches the training, praising the bully's skill with the techniques, and he celebrates the veteran's choice, swearing our hero is done for. But then he remembers what Woo-sik said earlier about the protagonist, yet he ignores the president's warning, thinking it's just some old man nonsense. The scene switches to Zone 2's camp, and the protagonist opens the door looking for Chung-hoon. Chung-hoon is surprised by the visit, recognizing the captain and Woo-sik. The guys came to chill and have a drink, since the dungeons have calmed down. They bring a rare drink from an abandoned market. Chung-hoon was a legend, respected by everyone, overflowing with charisma and talent on the job. Our hero asks about the others, hearing the group is in a meeting, so he decides to drink right away, since the booze stash is small. The boys then start drinking, ignoring military ranks. As the drink goes down, the kid asks if work's still crazy. Chung-hoon laughs, happy he can still fight, even with his body's limitations. Suddenly the scene jumps to 8 months earlier. Chung-hoon shows up totally wrecked, dying of embarrassment because he lost his right arm. Our hero gets sad at the news since the guy had talent, even messed up. The student asks for techniques, wanting to fight with just one hand. The protagonist even doubts it, but hears that as long as there's life, there's a way. Then our guy flashes that huge grin, swearing he'll break through any limit. And then all the training begins. The veteran trained hard with his left hand, proving everyone wrong. His swordsmanship surpassed his old level, and now he focuses on the monster's openings. Our hero messes with his buddy, remembering the training that almost made him run away. The guy still keeps the wooden sword, as the symbol of his comeback. That so-called guillotine blade was a gift, meant only to forge a legendary warrior. The veteran says he plans to pass the heirloom down to his grandson. Our hero cracks up because of that, but the guy says that was a death flag since he hasn't watched any movie. Everyone toasts and jokes, saying they'll all be done for soon. The big dad remembers his injured son, telling stories about the kid's skills at the barracks. The extras already get discouraged, realizing the story's gonna take hours. Chung-hoon laughs confidently, swearing that as long as he's alive he'll find a way. The badass listens to the dad's stories all night in that last drinking session. The scene switches to the gym in the present, where the veteran looks for an old photo. Chung-hoon shows the family record, pointing to his own dad in the picture. He keeps staring at the image while he talks about Chung-hoon, and remembers when he told the veteran to live a long time. Chung-hoon feels the weight of guilt, wondering if those words brought bad luck. The blonde girl hears the legend died in an accident. Our hero is surprised by the reveal. The veteran is surprised the newbie knows so much, and thinks this whole overcoming the impossible story is kind of forced. But he swears it's real, saying the protagonist and his dad would have been buddies. Our hero asks if the old man's okay, hearing there was some family drama recently. His dad won't let go of a secret investigation, living paranoid trying to solve the case, and he confirms 2 students died during the elections, 2 years ago. The veteran remembers 2 students died crushed after they changed the test. Chung-hoon finds out his buddy's dad got fired. The blonde girl is shocked by the news, hearing the outcome was inevitable. The guy became a council member by pure luck, but only the redhead was solid. The elite's protected kids didn't even take the test, dodging the trap that wiped out the competition. He regrets it to this day, thinking he could have acted before the disaster. The blonde girl asks if the veteran saved the newbie because of past trauma. The guy admits that sometimes he regrets it, since his hunter dream went down the drain. Still, he'd rather be broken than watch someone die right in front of him. Our hero holds the wooden sword, knowing his dad kept his grandpa's heirloom, and he realizes the weapon was meant for the grandkids, finally understanding the whole connection to the past. Junwoo asks to borrow the wooden sword, and asks if the grandpa legend sounds fake, hearing old stories always get exaggerated. Our hero says it's real, inviting the veteran to watch the beatdown. The first day of the finals begins, bringing the dreaded theory tests. Our hero is totally screwed, not understanding a single line of what's written. He spent his life hunting monsters, so math is from another planet. The bully is super focused, but everyone knows he memorized the answers. The badass looks worried at his partner, realizing her plan is at risk. The girl is insanely focused on the exam. Our hero gets worried, hoping the blonde girl doesn't embarrass herself on the test, but he decides to trust her potential. Out of nowhere, some old dude smacks the paper on his head. The teacher bans any peeking, telling him to focus only on the paper. We finally make it to the 4th day of the exam. Everyone gets called to the auditorium because the beatdown is about to start. The duo heads to the auditorium. The girl asks our hero to wait. Everything there looks like a fight stadium, with the crowd screaming non-stop. The blonde girl explains the event is pure marketing, basically a showcase for the broadcasters. Junwoo realizes it turned into an entertainment show where talent becomes profit. Taking his seat, the kid feels disgust for these old guys who make money off the beatdowns. Woo-sik steps on stage like he owns the place. He praises everyone's effort and starts explaining how the test works. The draw will pick 2 opponents for the ring and the winner moves on in the competition. Our hero notices it's King of the Hill style, reminding him of his glory days. Winning gives you 1 point on your record, while losing leaves your resume at 0. Extras with no points can try again, but anyone with more than 1 point can't. Woo-sik warns the suit can't tank everything, telling everyone to be careful. The class agrees right away. The president then gives the green light to start the test. Jung Taeyong and Gu Sangchan show up on the big screen. The fighters walk up to the stage properly geared up for the brawl, and just like that, the referee starts it. The blonde girl is stunned, seeing how busted Class A's level is in the ring. Then she notices the protagonist snoring. Shocked to see the kid was sleeping, Jung Kui says, "The fights are trash," saying he's exhausted from training. Our hero asks to be woken up later. The blonde girl can't believe the nerve, seeing the beast knocked out on the bench. Class D's test ends, and the blonde girl wakes the kid up. The kid wakes up, hearing it's their class's turn. The call for Class E starts, but the extras don't care at all. They couldn't care less about this beatdown. Our hero notices the lack of interest, asking if the blonde girl was checked out too. Out of nowhere, the blonde girl spots the veteran. The beast trades a quick greeting with his friend, while the big screen draws the next fighter. He decides to save his energy, choosing not to show his real power yet. The blonde girl ends up getting picked for the first fight. Our hero says this isn't going like planned, and tells his girl to stick to the training, focusing on what they practiced. All hyped up, he demands 10 wins in a row. Since the class has 20 extras, all they have to do is crush 10 straight to win. The blonde girl faces Lim Ji-hee in the ring, ready to start the duel. Right away, the rival activates rank D. The blonde girl lets the wind loose, rocking her opponent, and the other girl drops knocked out. Everyone's left speechless by the blonde girl's win, and the protagonist sees the damage, thinking she overdid it. The blonde girl lands another knockout on an extra. The guys on the bench don't understand anything. Right after that, the badass locks in 3 wins in a row, leaving the audience shocked at Class E's talent. The veteran watches from afar, impressed by how much she's improved in just 1 month, and says the blonde girl has as much talent as the redhead next to her. He finds it weird she's there, since nobody cares about Class E's tests. The pair argue about whether the interest is in some newbie, while the veteran woman stays mysterious. The veteran says he only came to watch the circus catch fire. In the center of the arena, the badass waits. Nobody in the crowd wants to risk it, and the announcer warns the beatdown will end if nobody goes. Out of nowhere, the bully raises his hand. Our hero just watches, realizing this Jusok isn't messing around. The two head to the center of the ring. The badass already maps out the strategy, knowing she needs to get close so she doesn't get wrecked. She then charges in with everything. The opponent gives a little smirk and the arena explodes. The badass notices the technique is on another level. The veteran questions his training, seeing the blonde girl is completely spent. This slacker mocks her stamina, comparing the poor girl to a cockroach. The blonde girl realizes that hit wasn't what she expected. The slacker explains he got help from influential people and gained that power. She asks if that's something to be proud of, but the rich boy feels like king of the world, and keeps provoking her, saying there's something she'll never have in her life. And then he drops the truth that she's an orphan, trying to throw her off. She tries to stay calm so she doesn't take the bait, remembering our hero's tips. The badass taught that rule number 1 is understanding your opponent. With no way out, she activates the blue flames, going all in to test the bully. The slacker lets out that little laugh, saying her power doesn't make any difference at all. The blonde realizes the play now is to focus on long-range fighting. All of a sudden, a crazy explosion comes straight at her. She wonders what the hell that was, since the attack was way too fast. The tough guy keeps throwing out a bunch of hits, bragging that he's the best. The blonde realizes it's not magic, since his attacks don't have any downtime. She spots the combat boost and rushes in on turbo mode. The cocky guy tries another punch, but she locks the idiot's arm. She takes the opening and just clocks him in the face. The badass explains he has to close his fist, so all you have to do is stop the motion. The badass watches from the sidelines, realizing the blonde nailed the deduction. He says if it were fire magic, she wouldn't even be able to get close to the tough guy, and explains that in this fighting style there's no downtime, so it's really dangerous. The secret to winning is to lock the movement, since the cocky guy has to punch the air. Even so, the kid thinks the plan isn't perfect, so she charges in and locks his fists again. The blonde headbutts the cocky guy in the nose. She locks his arms and switches on the blue flame turbo mode. Out of nowhere, an explosion blasts her away, sending the girl flying high. The rich boy laughs at the effort, saying that just locking his hands was pointless. The poor girl realizes the cocky guy can blow stuff up even with his knee. The cocky guy tells the blonde to know her place, and he's already setting up the finishing move, trying to send the poor girl straight to the grave. But out of nowhere, a hand catches the punch and our hero says this beating has gone way too far. The blonde is defeated and the narrator announces Junwoo for the next round. The cocky guy is happy to see the protagonist showed up. Junwoo walks in and asks if she's okay. The blonde says it's not over and tells him to get out of the ring. The protagonist praises his friend's fighting spirit after taking that beating, but tells her to stop being stubborn because accepting defeat is part of it. The blonde waves off the stretcher and decides to walk out of the ring on her own. Junwoo says he recognizes her effort. She leaves emotional after that. The cocky guy is all hyped up to face the protag and admits he was looking forward to it, but Junwoo calls out how over the top he's being. The tough guy says he went easy, but Junwoo tells him to chill out and asks if the kid forgot about the warehouse. Our hero wants to know where that rare power came from. The protagonist says he already knows who the godfather behind the trick is. The scene cuts to some background guys from the past complaining about some supposed accident. The hero suspects the tough guy is the son of an old acquaintance. The fifth round starts with Junwoo saying he's about to put on an epic demonstration. The veteran notices the badass plans to fight using only one hand. But the cocky guy cracks up and asks if he's being underestimated, and promises to send our hero to the hospital just to clown on him. Then he activates his explosion technique to end the fight for good, and fires off explosions everywhere trying to take our hero out. The extras in the stands are stunned by how cheap this kid is being. Jusuk says being athletic doesn't matter and that only power rules. Our hero appears in the middle of the smoke and says this generation is out of control, and says spamming power like a maniac doesn't solve anything, and messes with him, suggesting he fight with his eyes closed. The cocky guy freaks out when he realizes he hasn't landed a single hit on the protagonist. Our hero explains the explosion is tiny, and tells the rival to lie down, and says he didn't even need to dodge such a trash hit, and rushes in. The cocky guy tries to land a punch, yelling for the protagonist to go down. Junwoo counters the hit and leaves the rival completely lost, and he panics, not understanding how his own ability just vanished out of nowhere. Jusuk realizes the explosion was deflected with a piece of wood, but our hero stays calm and dares the idiot to try again. The cocky guy tries to attack again but runs out of breath and drops knocked out. In the stands, the redhead can't believe Junwoo used just a piece of wood, and asks how the hero stopped an explosion when it wasn't even a projectile. Then the veteran reveals the borrowed sword cuts through mana perfectly, so the two conclude the badass neutralized the move before it went off. The veteran asks if the redhead has any other theory about the fight, and she says slicing invisible mana in milliseconds is genius-level stuff. Then she concludes Junwoo fights like the old-school badass hunters from back in the day. The tough guy is left panting, not understanding how he's getting beat by some kid with a stick, and he's in shock, realizing his B-rank power is useless. But the slacker quickly remembers his elite status is going down the drain, so the guy panics, watching his future as a hunter disappear. The tough guy goes into denial because he's getting beat up and swears he's gonna finish the protagonist right now, yelling that Junwoo totally ruined his life. Soon the guy sets up the final blow to crush our hero. The security guards try to stop the duel before someone ends up dead. The veteran freaks out seeing the gym is about to turn to rubble, and activates the nuclear technique to send the hero back to the lobby. But Junwoo holds his ground and cuts the attack with his wooden sword. Suddenly the arena explodes. The extras run off before everything collapses on their heads. Junwoo ends up panting and laughing like a maniac. The tough guy humiliates the protagonist and says he just got really lucky. But then he powers up, swearing he'll leave the kid crippled. Out of nowhere, Junwoo appears behind the slacker in the blink of an eye and slams him straight to the ground. Junwoo tells the slacker to get up, warning that the kid crossed the line. The tough guy starts shaking with fear, barely able to breathe. Our hero brings the wood down, landing a clean, heavy hit on his rival. The tough guy is left gasping, feeling like he's done for if he gets back up. And Junwoo tells the kid to get on his feet already, but the slacker starts begging for mercy. Our hero asks if the idiot understands how serious that dangerous technique is, and yells that the gym almost turned to rubble because of a stupid screw-up. The slacker tries to give some lame excuse, but Junwoo doesn't buy it, and says another guy said the same thing 40 years ago. Our hero pulls out a purple blade and says he'll never be a hunter. The guy starts crying and pulls the My Dad card to be spared. Junwoo then activates the final judgment, crushing the tough guy with zero mercy. Meanwhile, the security guards are lost in the smoke. The test gets cancelled after Juicecake takes that brutal, evil beatdown from the protagonist. Junwoo walks off as the narrator says the fun's over for today, and the old man on the board recognizes the sword, saying the hero went way too far. Our hero says he needs to stop acting like he's still in his prime, and then warns that from now on he's going to be even more aggressive. Meanwhile, Professor Slacker is freaking out trying to call the minister. The protagonist runs through the mess, seeing the camp turned into a barbecue, and finds Chung-hoon, who didn't make it. The underlings show up and a recruit explains a monster escaped and blew itself up. Our hero gets pissed, demanding the safety protocol that got ignored. A kid admits the team seriously messed up the dungeon cleanup. Jungwoo gets pissed, yelling that it was impossible to lose on a basic mission. Then some extra confesses they cut staff to profit off the loot. The hero finds out they sent only 3 people instead of 7. The kid tries to stall, swearing it was all an unavoidable accident. But the badass loses it and chokes the traitor with no patience, and says he can forgive stealing. But there's one thing he never forgets: whoever messes up his work. He beats the crap out of the scumbag and makes him look hard at the chaos he caused, and says he didn't fight this hard just to watch this clown show happen. and yells that nobody there risks their life for nothing. But the coward just cries and plays the victim on the floor. The scumbag yells that he's a victim too, trying to fool the badass with bullshit, and begs for a chance, promising to pay back every cent he stole. Jungwoo ignores the crying and pulls out the guillotine blade to kick the traitor out, and tells him his hunter dream is over. The scene switches to the slacker, seeing the minister's calls and already starting to shake. He curses the tough guy for using the forbidden power on national TV, and realizes he's screwed, since the investigation is going to hit hard, and worries they'll uncover the illegal core scheme and other dirty secrets, so he panics, realizing it's all going to fall on him. The slacker punches the mirror, furious because the plan went wrong. He decides to get the forbidden core back before everything collapses for good, but he thinks the witnesses will keep quiet to protect themselves, so he tries to erase the evidence, ignoring the rest of the chaos. But the protagonist drops the item on the floor, asking if that's what he was looking for. The suit gets all pissy and tells Junwoo to go back to class, but the protagonist says he only brought the core because he was looking for it, and explains about the safety lock that's supposed to limit powers, but says that nuclear strike almost sent the whole gym back to the lobby. The suit plays dumb and questions the lack of locks. Junwoo asks if the guy used a forbidden core to cheat. Soon he warns that things are about to go south for that scumbag, but the officer mocks him, asking for real proof that he committed the crime. So our hero jogs his memory about the tragedy at the last camp, and reveals he cut off the traitor's mana and kicked the whole team out, and points out those skills are anything but normal. The punk loses it, grabbing the kid and asking who he is, but our hero says the scumbag even inherited his dad's attitude. Then he just clocks the idiot in the face, and warns that because of this coward, a lot of people almost got taken out. He also brings up the missing people, saying he won't tolerate that kind of filth, basically saying he hates anyone who tries to ruin everything he built. Junwoo stays on him and tells the punk to start talking already, and asks if he gave the forbidden core to Jusuk. The scumbag picks the item up off the floor and crushes it on the spot. Then he grins and asks what the protagonist is going to do now, and says nobody's going to believe some kid without real proof. He also says adults aren't some kind of joke. Then he swears our hero's school life ends today. But suddenly Wusik shows up, wanting to know what the commotion is about. The scumbag sees Wusik coming and immediately tries to blame the protagonist for assault, but Wusik says he was the one who broke the mirror. The punk messed up bad, then admits he broke it by accident. The two of them are like, alright, let's see where this goes. Wusik asks the hero if he got any solid lead. Junwoo hands over the phone and says the scumbag confessed to everything all by himself, and even roasts the suit, telling him to learn how to use a phone. Our badass orders the school to put out an official statement right now. Wusik agrees to the protagonist's order to release a statement. Meanwhile, the punk can't understand that weird closeness between the two. The punk freaks out when he sees the old man is about to report everything, and tries to threaten him, saying some minister is going to come after him. But Wusik vents that he regrets covering up that mess in the past, and says he should have handled it back then even if it meant risking getting fired. Totally ashamed, Wusik says he can't even look the protagonist in the eye right now. Wusik warns the scumbag he has no idea how much danger he's in today, and says the old Junwoo was way more terrifying. The punk panics and starts begging on his knees. The scene shifts and Junwoo says the internet pressure is going to crush their reputation. He tells Wusik to focus on spreading this whole scandal in the media, and he also brings up Chung-hoon's son who got unfairly fired. But Wusik asks if the protagonist's arm is still in one piece, and says tanking the guillotine debuff with a punch was insane. The system warns that Junwoo is suffering the penalty from the strike. Wusik suggests going to a hospital, but the badass says he's fine, and says goodbye, warning he needs to return an item now. The scene moves on and the hero meets the veteran, and shows up with the wooden sword, saying he'd been looking for the kid. The veteran asks if the protagonist fought left-handed on purpose, but Junwoo asks if that story about his grandpa still sounds exaggerated now, and says he just wanted to show the veteran the real deal. Then he returns the sword and says the rest is up to him. The kid holds the item and thinks about the advice. Shunwoo says goodbye and walks off like it's nothing. Chungyun stays there alone, processing everything he saw, and wonders if one day he'll be that badass too. But his phone starts ringing, his dad calling. He picks up and hears the old man yelling in a panic, but he calms him down and says he's already on his way home. His dad asks who the kid in the news is since he was using his grandpa's fencing technique. But putting that aside, the old man apologizes for being wrong about him before, but Chungyun says he's not giving up, and says he's going to become a top-tier hunter no matter what. Basically saying as long as they're still in the game they'll find a way. The 9 o'clock news opens with an incident that happened during an exam. They explain that the bully's dad is now on the police radar because of that cheating. The mess also drags up an old missing person case that had been shelved. Meanwhile, our hero chills at the gym, seeing the plan to expose those nobodies worked. The blonde girl shows up and tells the kid to get off his phone. She says the internet nicknamed the badass the Class E's secret weapon, but the hero says she's in the same boat, since people were talking about her even more. Then he shows a bunch of comments praising the blonde girl. Our hero messes with the blonde girl using her new nickname, leaving the redhead totally embarrassed. Out of nowhere, Jonghyun shows up at the gym and asks if the two are still training, and he comes in congratulating the badass for getting into the student council. But Jonghyun kills the vibe, saying nothing's been made official and it's not time to relax. Then the upperclassman shows the wooden sword, admitting he trained alone and it was brutal. So the hero says reaching the level of that legendary grandpa is going to be a real nightmare. Jongyun doesn't want any easy mode and begs the master to teach him the tricks. The blonde girl tries to jump in and says the hero's a slick one, telling him to be careful. The upperclassman's dad shows up at the gym looking for the missing documents, and he quickly notices the kids from Class E who got famous on TV. The old man points at the kids, swearing his technique is exactly like his father's. He also says you don't learn fencing like that just anywhere. The scene switches to the past, where the captain was the most feared soldier of all. He orders the extras thrown out without mercy, ignoring their pleas for forgiveness, and focused only on the city's destruction. Our hero faces the chaos when someone calls him. A soldier yells that he found a survivor. The hero is shocked seeing how that 10-year-old brat grew up. The bell rings and class finally ends. The teacher says anyone who wants to join the council should pick up the form at the office. Jungwoo jumps up and drags the blonde girl to go get the application, and says he's got something to check, so the two of them wait outside. Jungwoo tells the blonde girl to wait, saying there's still something he needs to check. Out of nowhere, the door opens and a girl with a bun shows up. She immediately recognizes the badass, remembering he wrecked that Jusuk guy. The extra freaks out with excitement, treating the kid like he's a celebrity. The girl asks if the blonde is his girlfriend, making her lose it. Hyun denies everything, red-faced, while the newbie teases her. The girl tells the badass to be confident, saying Class E is insane. Our hero thinks the small talk is weird, while she reveals she's from Class B. Now we find out her name. Jiyeon introduces herself all hyped, wanting to be buddies with the group. After all, they're gonna run into each other a bunch of times. Jiyeon shows the application form, saying there's no reason not to try. She lets slip that with the bully expelled, her spot is basically guaranteed. The kid notices she's talking like the spots were decided from the start, so he puts the pressure on, asking if she's part of the Parents Association. He confirms he'd been right the whole time, he just needed to make sure. The strategy of camping out by the office door was exactly to fish out an infiltrator, thus confirming his prediction was spot on. Jeonwoo puts it out there that this whole my spot's guaranteed just because the rich boy got kicked out story doesn't add up, and he says straight up that the student council election already looked rigged from the beginning. So he gets right to the point and accuses the girl of being part of that Parents Association. Jeon asks how he knows that, since only the big shots at school should have that info. Jeonwoo just says he's got sharp ears, and the student realizes the bully's downfall wasn't a coincidence, and she admits she couldn't stand that jerk either. The girl mocks how Jeon got humiliated and stained the elite's name by losing to Class E students. Right after that, she tries to hold out her hand, suggesting everyone drop the beef and get along, but Jeonwoo just ignores the gesture. That pisses her off, and she says having connections in Class B would be a huge advantage for him, but Jeonwoo turns down the offer. Trying to play off the massive rejection, Jeon says the kid doesn't know anything. Jeon tells it like it is, saying the internet fame went to the hero's head and that in the council the levels are totally different. The kid agrees it's not completely wrong, remembering how the upperclassman Jonghyun was treated like trash by the other members. But Jeongwoo doesn't care if she's from Class B or anything else. He says he only came to get a look at the candidates' faces and he's already heading out. The girl freezes while he says she picked the wrong enemy. Then he ends the conversation with the girl and gets out of there. Meanwhile, a group of big shots has lunch at a fancy restaurant, worried about the investigation into Minister Oh and Professor Cha. They try to convince themselves the two of them wouldn't spill the scheme, since that would mean admitting their own guilt. But this one lady at the table is feeling uneasy, asking if the investigation might end up reaching them too. The group says the Parents Association is in real danger, and they're not just going to sit back and watch everything burn. Things heat up when they mention even the director is there, which means nobody's going to dare open their mouth. This director Go Sok-do is the real boss, the guy who created the association and runs the black market from behind the scenes. As long as the big shot is at the table, everyone knows the whole operation is protected from any investigation. Their focus now is making sure the vice president gets promoted and takes control of the whole mess. The lady warns that if the tide turns, everyone's going to have to change the plan so they don't go down. The mood gets heavy at the table, with the big shots agreeing the contracts with Minister O went straight to hell. They admit everyone there had some kind of deal with him, but nothing that would really keep the group up at night. On the other hand, they point out the most important thing is keeping the association's dirty business running full speed. The group laments the subjugation department leaving, since it was a key piece in the machine. Soon someone suggests that if they pick the right replacement for that playboy Jusuk, they can still save a lot of people's skin, but Junwoo is still in their way. The table full of big shots can't swallow how some kid who got in through special admission could be aiming for a seat on the student council, but the lady cuts in, saying it's not that simple. They admit they could have handled the beating Junwoo gave the playboy, but the real problem is what happened after. Jusuk's spot on the council was locked in even after the disqualification, but everything changed when Woosik got involved. The group starts to realize the school's over-the-top reaction wasn't random and that something bigger is going on. They figure Woosik gains nothing by exposing his own academy, since it'd be way smarter to cover up the school's mistakes. The lady gets it right away. If the old man is cutting ties like that, it's because there's some nasty beef going on between him and Kim Junwoo. They conclude the kid managed to make Woosik serve him like a puppet, so they start wondering if Junwoo getting into the council is going to mess with Woosik's head for good. He says that even though Woosik doesn't have much influence, their military past makes the old man potentially more dangerous than the minister who got taken down. The dinner table gets tense as everyone realizes the ship is sinking and people are about to jump. Huang Changsu, the guildmaster, feels like he's the only one totally screwed because the project he was running depended 100% on Minister O's influence. With his career hanging by a thread, desperation hits, and he starts thinking of ways to survive this humiliation. His phone starts ringing right at the worst moment. It's his daughter calling, and he picks up already kind of impatient. She says Junwoo isn't running for the council, Go Ah-yoon is. It clicks instantly for Changsu. That Ah-yoon is Go Ah-yoonche's half-sister, and more importantly, the granddaughter of the powerful director Go Sik-do. He hides his nerves, letting out a forced laugh so he doesn't raise suspicion at the table. Then he makes up some excuse about his daughter calling and gets out of there. So he rushes out and without wasting time calls Go Ah-yoonche directly, saying he has something important to talk about. Changsu meets Go Ah-yoonche at the cafe and tells her straight. Akers has the contact info for any hunter in Seoul. He brings up the student council elections, asking if she knows who's running. Ah-yoonche already gets that it's not Junwoo, because her dad basically spoiled that Go Ah-yoon is jumping into the race. Changsu takes the opening to poison her mind, saying her half-sister getting on the council is a nightmare for Ah-yoonche. He points out it'll drag her family's dirty laundry into the open, and make Grandpa Go Sik-do furious. So the bastard offers a little help to solve the problem, and screw up Ah-yoon's candidacy. Changsu doesn't waste time and lays out the condition. He wants Ah-yoonche to take GN on a public hunt, and also hype the girl up in any interview. Ah-yoonche is shocked. Ah-yoonche doesn't even come close to the association, and asking for that is a blatant abuse of power. The guildmaster ignores her shock and explains the plan. Turn GN into Ah-yoonche's new icon, making the guild independent from the minister and the director. Ah-yoonche shoots back bluntly that the girl's totally useless, to the point she only got into Class B because of her IQ and needs a private tutor. The bastard spells it out. He doesn't want real skill, he just wants his daughter to pretend she's a talented hunter. The girl realizes the plan is to turn GN into nothing but a mascot. Ah-yoonche cuts him off and demands to know how the bastard plans to stop Ah-yoonche's candidacy. Changsu dodges, saying he won't go as crazy as Director Sik-do, but adds that they'll use force if they have to. Ah-yoonche says threats or bribery won't work on Ah-yoon, leaving the guy with no way out. She stands up furious, and asks if he's already spread this filth to the other parents in the association, but he laughs in her face, asking who would even benefit from a leak at that level. The focus shifts to a painful past, where little Ah-yoon was kneeling in front of a funeral altar, crying over the loss of her parents. That stuck-up big shot shows up in the middle of the wake with his goons, not caring at all about respecting the family's grief. The grandma recognizes the piece of trash instantly, and charges at him, accusing him of being the real one responsible for her son's death. She throws it in his face that he faked the dungeon rank and still refused any support during the mission. But the guy has the nerve to play the victim, spouting some BS about how he also lost a son and asking who should really be angry there. So the old lady kicks the man out. Then the man comments that he left a fat stack as condolences. But before that, he looks over at Ah-yoon and drags Incho away. The grandma screams that the guy's gonna die while the blonde tries to calm her down. Cut to the present and the blonde wakes up in a panic, getting chased by that traumatic dream again. Junwoo notices the blonde's been spaced out for a while and asks if everything's okay. The girl brushes it off, but he doesn't let it slide and accuses her of slacking off. Out of patience, the hero calls for a break in training to try a different approach. He decides to poke the wound and asks the real reason the girl hates Grandpa Sik-do. Ah-yoon drops the bomb right away. The old man was responsible for her parents' deaths. Junwoo is stunned by the revelation. To him, it makes zero sense that that man, who back then wouldn't hurt a fly, could have done something like that. And then the hero ends up letting it slip that he knows Sik-do really well. The blonde jumps up and asks what he knew about that bastard. Junwoo tries to fix his screw-up on the spot, saying he just thought Grandpa seemed different from what he remembered. Ah-yoon ignores the BS, kills the mood, and storms out of the room, slamming the door. Junwoo finds the blonde's training gear tossed aside, realizing she bailed early. Jonghyun shows up, putting the pressure on, thinking Jonghyun messed up and picked a fight with the girl. The hero doesn't bite and immediately switches gears to ask if the veteran knows about Director Sik-do's dirty secrets. The veteran says he knows the basics until Junwoo drops the million-dollar question. Had that bastard ever taken someone out? Jonghyun asks if it was the blonde herself who spilled that heavy secret. Junwoo confirms he already knew what was up, so the veteran finally decides to come clean. He starts telling how Yeonche's dad snapped, ditched the arranged marriage, and went to live with Oh-hyun's mom. The real mess started 8 years ago, when they sent the couple on a mission to some remote branch. The whole team chickened out and bailed halfway, leaving just the two lovebirds to face the danger. They thought it'd be a quick little green rank run, but their luck had already run out. With no other choice, the two of them opened the boss room door. The shock hit instantly when they realized it was nothing like the weak rank they'd been promised. The dungeon was orange rank, and the exit sealed the moment they opened the boss room door. Junwoo asks about the rescue request, and finds out comms got cut at the absolute worst possible moment. That's when the hero goes on alert, feeling like there are way too many coincidences stacked in this story. Thinking Sik-do orchestrated everything based on just that still feels like a pretty weak theory. The problem is the location was correctly reported as orange rank to HQ, so there was no way Sik-do, the support director, didn't know what kind of mess they were walking into. The case is shady as hell, but the lack of physical evidence makes it a massive headache to investigate. What's really terrifying is that 2 years ago, the exact same kind of disappearance happened during the academy exam. so the question is whether there's still any trace left of the man Junwoo met 40 years ago. Junwoo picks up the accessory A-hun dropped in the gym and says he's gonna go return it to the girl. Meanwhile, the blonde walks down the street, overthinking like crazy, regret hits, and she's already planning how she'll apologize tomorrow. Out of nowhere, two guys step out of the shadows and corner the girl. She even asks if they had something to settle with her, and she realizes those freaks were using an arc. Those guys are hunters. She gets ready to fight, but she left her training gear back at the gym. These guys didn't come to mess around, and they activate their skill, and with one hit they knock the girl out cold. The kidnappers take advantage and drag the girl straight to the vehicle. Chung-soo tells the guys to get in the car and get out of there. Now, scene change. Chung-soo tries calling the girl, but it goes straight to voicemail, so he decides it's better to return her stuff the next day. Chung-soo tries to reach Ah-hyun on her phone, but it just goes to voicemail. It's been 3 days since the girl disappeared, and she hasn't shown up at home either. The school already reported she didn't come back, and the police were called. The deadline to register for the council is today, at 6 in the afternoon. It's obvious the girl wouldn't just quit out of nowhere. Someone's sabotaging this whole thing. Chung-soo asked if the Parents Association was involved, but the protagonist denies it. After all, Professor Cha's investigation is still ongoing. With the rich kid out of the game, the veteran starts thinking about who else would benefit from her candidacy getting wrecked. It clicks instantly, and Chung-fu realizes the only one who could be behind it is Yoon-chae, and he starts wondering who made the call and leaked the secret to Yoon-chae. Chung-soo panics, swearing up and down he hasn't said a word to anyone since the exam. The protagonist realizes he screwed up at the coordinator's office door and ended up saying too much to that Class B girl. This Hwang Jian is in the Parents Association and must have picked up the info from overhearing. Jung-fu wonders if Jian teamed up with Yoon-chae just to kidnap Ah-hyun, which still feels weird to him. He figures there are more people in this scheme pulling both of them around from the shadows. No messing around, the hero calls Jung-seun's dad directly to dig up that info. The request is simple: investigate who Jian's parents are, and the answer comes back: her dad is the boss of the Acres Guild branch. The Acres Guild is a total trouble pit, operating as anything but a normal hunting company. Jung-fu goes all in and tries to track down where Jian's old man is hiding. But the guy warns him it's a tough one, and suggests handing the whole thing straight to the police. But the protagonist says he doesn't need to and thanks him for the info. The old man takes the chance to thank him for having Jung-yoon's back. Jung-yoon's still stuck on it, not knowing how they're gonna find the kidnappers. But our badass already has the plan ready. He's gonna make them come to them. The veteran freaks out and remembers his dad's a cop, and that this plan reeks of a crime waiting to happen. But the protagonist just walks off, not wanting to hear anything else. The scene shifts to Jian complaining to her dad that the whole Ah-hyun candidacy talk didn't even get her a pat on the back. But then Jung-woo shows up out of nowhere, and he doesn't waste time with small talk. He equips the ring and activates the skill right away, making the girl meet pain. Scene changes to Chung-soo answering the phone and speaking bluntly with Yoon-chae, and he says the blonde is restrained and not making a scene. He brags that they're pros, saying a student is no challenge for them. The guy asks if it's really right to go this far against her own sister, but the girl insists this is a problem she decided to handle personally. Then she asks him to hold the blonde until 6 in the afternoon. The bastard hangs up, saying the brat inherited that person's stubbornness. When he gets to the hideout, Chung-soo demands a status update and hears from a lackey that the hostage is still calm. He says to release the girl only after 6, but orders the lackeys to keep an eye on her. All of a sudden his phone rings, and he finds it weird seeing it's his own daughter calling. Chung-soo answers, already chewing her out, but hears Jian screaming for him in desperation. So you gotta know what the hell is going on the other end of the line. The daughter reveals she was kidnapped. Jung-woo takes the call and straight up asks if he's talking to the kidnapped girl's dad. The old man completely loses it and demands to know who this punk is and what they did to the girl. The protagonist tells the guy to calm down and chill before they keep talking, and says he just wants to make a deal to settle this. Chung-soo freaks out and demands to know who this punk is and what they did to his daughter. Jung-woo fires back that he still hasn't done anything to the girl. He thinks back to the old days and decides the old eye for an eye rule is the only way to deal with people at this level. The guy asks what the kid's goal is and gets told to hand over the blonde within an hour. Chung-soo cracks up and asks if the protagonist even knows who he's trying to step to. Jung-woo says he knows the Acres Guildmaster very well and isn't intimidated by his position, and tells the old man to calm down and focus on his daughter's safety before it's too late. Chung-soo curses the kid out while the hero remembers the deadline to bring Ah-hyun is running out. But the guy dares the kid to try any funny business with the girl, and asks if the protagonist's plan is to kill the girl, but finds out her fate could be worse than death. Jung-woo says he'll make sure Jian can never live as a hunter again, and brings up Ju-suk, who even geared up, completely lost the ability to use skills. It finally hits the guy when he remembers that wooden sword. The badass ends the call warning that the girl will lose her spot and her career if the deal isn't honored right now, and asks if the villain is willing to pay the price for the girl's ransom. He also says he'll text the location and orders the old man to show up ASAP. The veteran asks if the protagonist understands the risk of taking on the elite, but Ju-suk says he can handle anything, even against Acres pros. Ju-suk finds out her own dad kidnapped Ah-hyun. The scene switches to Chung-soo blowing up on the phone with Yoon-chae and revealing the kid exposed the whole scheme, and says the hero captured his daughter and demands a hostage swap in just 1 hour. So he swears he won't accept Ju-suk Han her career getting ruined by a student. But he explains he doesn't expect anything from Ju-suk Han, because that's not what he wants. Yoonchae asks if the guy is going to walk away from the job because of the hero's pressure. Chongsu says he won't quit the mission, but warns that Ahyun's life is in danger now. Then the guy orders the goons to throw the hostage in the car and grab the weapons. The scene shifts to the place where they were going to meet, and Changsu demands to know where Jihyun was. Jihyun says the order of things is messed up and demands they bring a Haehyun first. Then the guy gives the signal to hand over the blonde. Our badass greets her. Meanwhile, the girl can barely believe the hero showed up. Changsu suggests they swap hostages already to close this tab once and for all. But the bastard lights a cigarette and changes the rules mid-game, saying he got orders to keep a Haehyun with them, and says he's taking both girls away. And the hero asks what happens if he says no. The guy cracks up and makes it clear he's not there asking permission. And then the guys get surrounded. Jihyun tries to calm things down and suggests they settle this without going crazy. Changsu mocks him and says the kid started out tough but now he's ending up begging, and says there won't be any deal. Look at the blonde's face. She doesn't understand anything. Jihyun tells the hero to stop being crazy and let her go already. Jihyun tells his partner that taking on these pro guys alone is going to be rough. Jihyun just gives a little smile and says the terms don't matter anymore. The system grants access and confirms the login of Hunter Kim Jong-hyun with C rank, and activates the skill Mad Hedgehog to go into beatdown mode. The kid says that after a month of training, it's time for the monthly evaluation. Jaehyun pulls out a golf club and says his score is going to be pretty strict. Jongsu cracks up and asks if he's really going to fight using a golf club. Losing patience, he tells the goons to rush in and end this clown show, and says the situation is ridiculous, and they've been watching way too many movies. The beatdown stops, and Acker's goons start getting launched far away. Jonghyun and the badass show that a month of training wasn't a joke, and they smash the extras with straight-up fists. Ahun mocks the kid and suggests he go tell the client right now that the plan went to hell. Jongsu blows up with rage when he sees the job failing hard right in front of him, and he tries to wrap his head around how school kids can have such insane reads on tactics and combat. To him, pro hunters should be on a whole nother level, but reality is hitting hard. The hero keeps wrecking the underlings using nothing but a golf club. Meanwhile, Chongsu can't figure out how his goons are getting beaten. After all, they were Acker's hunters. Then the protagonist charges straight at him. In a master move, the hero slips past the kid and cuts Ahun's ropes. Chongsu realizes he fell for a feint and is completely shook in the middle of the fight. And he realizes he got played like a fool by a student, and his ego goes down the drain. Finally understanding how big of a mess this is, the system unlocks an A-rank skill and Chongsu summons a tiger and says he'll handle it himself. Chongsu calls to the blonde girl and tosses the ring back and tells her to get out and head straight to the school, and says the priority is the council registration, and she can't waste time. But Chongsu answers that he's not letting the hostage escape, but the badass blocks the tiger's strike, and challenges the guildmaster to try getting past him first. Chongsu runs like there's no tomorrow, but the girl is forced to stop in her tracks. Chongsu shows up in the way to personally block her half-sister's path. Chongsu tries to bolt, but Yongsu blocks the way and says she's not going anywhere. That's when the family talk starts, and the blonde remembers the time they lived in misery in a tiny room falling apart, and she questions the irony of their parents being hunters, and still the family always being broke. Then she reveals that old man Seok-do used tricks to squeeze a fortune out of her parents. To cover the losses, the couple busted their asses doing side gigs outside the guild just to survive. Even when things were tight, Chongsu dad stayed optimistic in that stinky little room. He swore the girl had a very kind older sister, and that one day they'd be friends. Chong demands to know why Chongs didn't show even a bit of respect, not even at her own dad's funeral, and talks about how her sister can serve the monster who killed their father. Chongs too tries to act understanding, but the blonde fires back saying she doesn't get anything. Out of patience, the girl activates Azure Flame and warns the elite not to get in her way. Then the redhead activates Crystal Rise and says she has no idea what kind of person their grandpa is, and says the girl is going to end up dying, but Ah-hyun says she doesn't care about anything anymore. So the two of them start fighting with their magic. Meanwhile, Junwoo keeps holding back the giant tiger with nothing but the golf club. Changsu tries to use the opening to slip out of there and go after his target. Junwoo gets in his way and asks where the villain thinks he's going, and says that to get to Ah-hyun, he'll have to get past him first. The kid loses it and can't understand how a student has such unreal combat instincts, and he realizes his underlings are fumbling and he might lose sight of the hostage. No time for pointless talk. The kid decides he's not holding back anymore. Then he activates Mana Link, tells the kid not to die now, and charges in with everything. Junwoo realizes the beast is way too fast. The tiger attacks the body instead of the head, and the protagonist spits blood from the impact. And he realizes the villain is going all in with Mana Link. Changsu sneers, asking if that scratch was enough to scare him. The kid realizes this technique is the peak of summoning skills. Unlike normal summons, the master now controls every move of the tiger like it's a video game. The beast hits the level of a boss monster, overflowing with mana everywhere. The tiger rushes in hard, even if it looks like a wild attack. Every strike aims exactly at his weak points. Our hero ends up jumping to dodge the hit, but Changsu summons the giant golem and says he finally got the kid. Taking advantage of the hero being in the air, the villain says all that's left is for him to take the hit. Changsu admits the blow landed, and admits that facing two summons back-to-back is rough. The kid promises he's not going down now, but the pain is going to be hell. So the hero activates the golf club's secret skill mid-flight. Changsu panics when he realizes that accessory is also a magic weapon, and he curls up tight, trying to tank the impact shock. Changsu explains that Mana Link has a flaw no pro can hide. According to him, if the summoner looks away for even a second, the creature becomes totally useless. The hero realizes the magic weapon was only good for cheating in golf bets and making the ball fly far. In the end, the badass bails and says he's going to charge Wusik for that crappy item. Jiangsu wonders if Jiangsu is managing to tank the guild boss all by himself, and he realizes he doesn't have time to worry about others with 3 pros right in front of him. So he faces the danger and asks if he can really handle that trio without help. The goons mock the kid's courage and say they need to wrap this up fast so they don't get chewed out by the boss. So the guys rush in with everything they've got. In this pinch, Zhang Yun focuses on what the master taught during training. He remembers his mad porcupine skill uses spikes that regenerate so he can keep attacking non-stop. The hero remembers that the habit of diving right into the middle of enemies was what screwed everything up, and he made it clear that fighting one-armed against multiple opponents is basically suicide. The lesson was simple: keep moving and bait the guys so you can take a real opening. The main goal is to create a favorable condition for the fight. The guys get annoyed with all the running around and complain the fight turned into some stupid game of tag. The stalling works, making them lose patience and break their group formation. Finally, one of the cocky ones loses it and attacks alone, falling for the trap like a total sucker. Zhang Yun takes the opening and lands a hit on the first cocky guy who came in alone. Another guy tries to rush him, but ends up with the same result as the other guy, so the veteran keeps holding his ground. And bam, another hit on the other guy. The veteran is surprised, realizing he's tanking the elite even without using any active skill right now. It even reminds him of what the hero taught him during training. Suddenly, the villains spot Zhang Yun hiding behind the pillar. One of them orders the others to secure the girl first and ignore the kid for now. Zhang Yun freezes when he realizes he completely forgot to protect the girl. Taking advantage of the slip-up, the enemy lands a punch on the veteran. Then the other goons jump on the opening and come in with a sweep, and they start beating Zhang Yun into the ground, trying to break every last bone in the kid's body. The veteran remembers Zhonggu's warning. If the distance between him and the enemy closes, it's game over for sure. And he explains that in moments like this, all you can do is endure the beating and pray for a miracle awakening. That phenomenon happens when a hunter gets cornered and the body reacts on pure survival instinct. But the hero warned that relying on that is a trap, and it's better to avoid getting to that level of desperation. Back in the brawl, the extra complains that some insignificant kid is giving them way too much trouble. The enemy finds it weird that the target is just standing there, but Zhongyun reacts, gripping the magic spike with blood in his eyes. Suddenly the veteran stabs the guy's leg and then hits several more spots. Dude, no way! He activated his aura he had stored up. That's crazy. The guys are totally shocked to see the student still has the stamina to fight after taking that much of a beating. They try to restrain the badass by force, but the veteran grabs the spike that fell into his mouth and bam, right into the guy's hand. The guys back off and ask if that monster in front of them is the same rookie from before, so they decide to resort to using their gear, and they activate rank B skills to try to finish the veteran. Then one of the goons gets slapped and looks back, not understanding anything. Changsu orders the subordinates to put the gear away and says the show's over, and he lights a cigarette and admits defeat to the group. But exhaustion wins out and the veteran finally collapses to the ground. Changsu admits the kid is a monster for forcing the elite to rely on items. Seeing how strong his opponent is, the guy admits the veteran is really something else. The scene changes and Afyan lost, while Inche says she expected way more from the new council candidate, and asks if that's the limit of the revenge the girl has to offer. Then the redhead tells her to give up, saying she'll disappear without a trace if she stays weak like this. Afyan ignores the scolding and says she'd rather go down fighting than quit now. Inche just turns her back and leaves the girl behind, doubting she can even move in that state. Even all beat up, the girl tries to get up. As she watches her sister take off, she goes into shock at being beaten in such a humiliating way. All of a sudden, Jumu shows up out of nowhere and asks why the girl's just rotting there. Afyan and Inche freeze when they see the protagonist popping up in the middle of the chaos. The hero greets the redhead like it's no big deal, making the girl freak out, wanting to know how he got past security. Jumu says he tried to talk it out, but Changsu was way too stubborn and full of himself, and he reveals he put everyone to sleep before coming to check how the mess was going. Inche asks if he really took down Director Huang, but the hero denies it. Then he looks at the redhead and asks if he looks like he came here to crack jokes right now. Then he says it doesn't matter whether she believes him or not and tells her to move because they're out of time. The girl asks what the real reason is that the hero's risking his neck to help the blonde. The protagonist says their personalities match, but the redhead warns that helping that girl comes with a price he doesn't understand. Our badass asks if he really needs to worry about that kind of detail right now. The redhead activates Crystal Rise and readies ice to block the kid's path. She says the hero's gonna realize soon what a stupid mistake he made, but by then it'll be way too late for regrets. The protagonist notices there are only 15 minutes left until the final deadline, and realizes he can't waste time on a pointless fight, and says if she fights now, it'll be obvious she was involved in this. Yunshi, the top student, involved in a kidnapping of a minor, so the girl quickly deactivates the magic. Without wasting time, the hero throws the blonde over his back and says he's getting out of there. But before he goes, the redhead says she'll accept the favor he did earlier. She'll convince her grandpa, but asks him to leave the blonde and go. Junchu realizes the girl was serious. Still, he ends up refusing the offer. After all, one of his subordinates made the situation worse. He keeps carrying the trainee and feels like this time they crossed every line. The hero tells the redhead to let Grandpa Seokdu know the game just leveled up, and says he'll be paying the old man a personal visit very soon. Cut to the hospital, where Afyun jolts awake after being out cold for a whole day. Junwoo says she's safe but tells the blonde not to rush to get up yet. The blonde panics, asking about the council registration. The hero reveals he managed to get the girl there to sign the candidacy before the deadline. After confirming she's awake, the protagonist says he's heading out. Afyun asks why he turned down the redhead's offer, since it was the perfect chance. But Junwoo explains the redhead is way more scared of her grandpa than he thought, because the redhead is controlled by the old man, Go Seokdu, and he explains he needs allies who'll stand up to Grandpa Seokdu, not people who just bow their heads to orders. The blonde asks if there's another reason he refused the redhead's offer, but the badass says he did it because the girl's way too damn entitled, and says the elite have been arrogant from the start, but warns there's someone even more full of themselves standing right in front of him. Junwoo tells the girl to shut it and already warns her training's gonna be hell the moment she gets discharged, and he walks to the exit and says her personal drama isn't his problem, but he guarantees that for now she's doing really well, and he leaves the hospital. Woosik confirms he already leaked the rumors to the media like planned. The hero says Yunche's move went down the drain, and now they need a plan B, and he worries someone might think he's involved in the dirt if the scandal fully blows up. The old man is surprised Junwoo didn't expose the Parents Association and the redhead right away. Junwoo explains he just needed to throw the right bait so the big fish would bite the hook, and he leaves the rest of the cleanup to the kid, who complains he always has to fix other people's messes. Woosik calls the kid over and asks when he's going to return the borrowed golf club. Switching scenes, the redhead doesn't know what to do. She realizes Akyun getting into the council is now a done deal. The girl's afraid the family's dirty past will come out as soon as the media starts digging into the story, and she thinks about how she risked everything by teaming up with Chang-soo, and now she's wondering what Junwoo's real intention is. Her phone buzzes on the table and someone on the other end says they saw the news and that something really interesting just happened. The redhead freezes on the spot and demands to know what that mysterious talk is supposed to mean. The internet goes crazy with the news that Chang-soo got caught red-handed with Akyun's kidnapping. Seokdu wants to know if she's the one who set up this whole mess, and he warns that if this drama keeps going like this, they're both done for and they'll lose their status among the elite. Akyun swears she'll find a way to fix the situation, but the old man explains she didn't understand what's really going on, and he says the exposé was just bait. Then he demands the name of the punk who had the nerve to stand up to them, so he tells the redhead he's gonna do it his way. At school, the vibe in Class B turns sour and the students start whispering about the scandal. That's when the jerk Lee So-young shows up to finish burying the girl and mock the embarrassment her old man went through. Jian tells So-young to get lost if he doesn't have anything useful to say. The jerk keeps clowning on the amateur kidnapping the Acres Guild tried to pull. He cracks up saying her dad's courage was impressive, just in the wrong way, so the girl stands up to leave. But So-young tells it like it is, and says that without daddy around, Jian is basically a nobody, and he says that without her family's setup, she could barely even stay in Class D. Then the kid grabs her shoulder and says he can get her a job at his company. The offer is some low-level position, saying all she needs to know is how to make a little coffee. Jian shrugs off his touch and leaves. Walking alone, she admits she only became elite and got into Class B because of her old man's influence. She swears she trained hard every day to try to reach the level her dad expected from her. On the prison visit, she swears to Chang-soo that she'll work hard to sort out the mess, but the old man doesn't even care and asks what she thinks she can do without him around, and he tells the girl to stay quiet and not try any unnecessary stunts. Then he reveals he never expected anything from her and leaves the girl in shock. Jane realizes her dad never had any expectations for her and wonders why she tried so hard. It hits her that she was just a decoration for her old man's plans this whole time. On the way, the girl spots Junwoo. Then the anger spills over and she dumps all her frustration onto the protagonist's name. Chang-soo asks what the association's boss is doing there. Grandpa Seokdu plays it off, saying he only came out of consideration for the time they spent together. Chang-soo clocks right away that something's up, since the old man doesn't even show up to official elite events. Seokdu asks if the kid is doing okay, and he reveals Legal already found a fall guy to take the rap and pull Chang-soo out of the spotlight. Then he reminds him that the Acres Guild has always been the association's trash dump for the hardest jobs, so he reinforces that no matter how rotten the job was, the guild always found a way. But then his tone changes and Seokdu admits he's really disappointed in Chang-soo's attempt at independence. And he says he knows everything, from the alliance with the minister to the secret scheme with the redhead granddaughter. Chang-soo doesn't get how the old man found out plans that were supposed to be top secret. Seokdu tells him not to get worked up for no reason, and he offers the punk his freedom in exchange for a little favor, explaining that he just needs him to take care of one single loose end cleanly and without complications. And he reveals this time the target is a certain freshman newbie who got into the academy through special admission. Chang-soo finally processes that this time the target is none other than Kim Junwoo. Seokdu says the kid had the nerve to throw out the bait and now he needs to pay the price. Chang-soo asks if the mission isn't too dangerous to carry out, but the old man tells the kid to think very carefully about the risks involved and asks what would be worse, dealing with the protagonist or letting the granddaughter's scandal leak all the way to the public. Then he promises he'll get in touch as soon as the job is done. Back at school, Jian blows up and accuses Junwoo of being happy about her dad's downfall. The protagonist doesn't understand anything, and the girl insists he's just playing dumb. And she screams that he got his revenge and now he just wants to watch her crash and burn all by herself. But our badass just has this look like, bro, what the hell is this girl even talking about? And in the kid's head he says all of that was a misunderstanding. Out of nowhere the girl says it's not gonna go the way he expects, and says she's gonna quit the academy. Junwoo goes, so what? And tells her to do whatever she wants, leaving her on red. And he warns her that her life isn't his problem, but tells her not to start shit with other people while she decides whether she's bouncing or staying at the school. Jian freaks out and yells that the protagonist ruined everything, turning her life into complete trash. The kid stops and asks why the hell any of it would be his fault. The girl keeps yelling about her dad's fate like that excuses the whole tantrum. Junwoo fires back that the old man's downfall has nothing to do with the effort she says she's put in her whole life, and asks if the hit her dad took makes all her training totally useless. So he asks if she really wants to admit she's nothing but useless without daddy around to carry her. The girl yells that she just wanted recognition, saying she trained her ass off trying to meet the family's expectations. Man, the girl only knows how to scream, but our protagonist right. She remembers the sleepless nights trying to summon that firefox, not skipping a single day of training, and vents about the desperation of feeling like the goal was impossible to reach, no matter how hard she tried. So she breaks down crying and regrets throwing so much effort away if nobody ever expected anything from her from the start. The protagonist gets tired of the drama and says her whole approach to training was wrong from start to finish. Then he starts the lesson and explains that the basics of the summoner class are controlling the creature before you start forcing a mana connection. The girl freezes when she sees the kid figured out her fighting style right away, but he just says it's obvious. Then he notices the scars on her arms and reveals that rushing to connect made the summoned fox attack its own owner. And he realizes the girl's in a hurry to reach her dad's level as fast as possible. The protagonist explains that the first step is controlling the summon without relying on a mana link, treating the creature like a fighting partner and not just a tool, and teaches that the real connection only comes with experience, and trying to skip steps is the fastest way for things to go to shit. Noticing the girl froze up, the hero asks if she's at least paying attention. Jaeon asks if following that path will turn her into someone as broken as the protagonist himself. The hero shuts it down immediately and says that idea is totally absurd and not happening. Still, it'd be enough to leave her dad surprised. Jungwoo thinks he's wasted way too much time on the girl, and his phone starts buzzing in his pocket. He picks up, and the mysterious voice asks if he's that freshman who got in through special admission. Even with decades in between, the protagonist recognizes that tone right away, and says he was already running out of patience waiting for that call. Go Seok-do finally entered the game. The old man admits the kid's move was smart, and asks what the kid wants in return, and the hero says the request is pretty simple to handle. Then Seok-do asks if the cocky brat has any real proof of Junche's involvement in the blonde girl's kidnapping, and explains that all the hunter's location logs and skill usage logs are managed by the support HQ, so since he runs the whole damn thing, no record is going to be used as evidence. Junchew dares the old man to hang up if he's so sure there's no valid proof against the elite, and says the cards he's holding are going to show up for the whole world the moment the news breaks in the media. The old man ends up agreeing to the meeting, leaving the kid satisfied. But Seok-do says it won't be right now since he's a busy guy. The scene switches to Chong-soo heading out and taking a drag off his cigarette. Kids, don't smoke. Soon a guy introduces himself as Seok-do's personal assistant and says he's there to escort him to his residence. Chong-soo admits he didn't expect things to go this well, and realizes he was never Junchew's real target. Then he thinks the protagonist just sped up his own trip to the lobby by deciding to stand up to Seok-do, something he's not going to be able to handle, and he says the kid's lack of foresight just proves he's still a child. The thug hands over the job's coordinates, setting the payback for the first Saturday of next month. Chong-soo says he'll handle it without leaving a trace, showing he's more than determined to wipe out any trace of the kid. But the assistant warns that Grandpa's order is clear. The job has to be done solo to avoid getting exposed. Chong-soo asks if the old man has totally lost it, sending him alone on a mission. He warns that even if they teamed up every B rank in the guild, it still wouldn't be enough to go up against the protagonist's freaky level. The assistant cracks up thinking it's a joke, since to him the target is just a regular high school kid. Man, the kid doesn't even know who our aura farmer is. But Chong-soo makes that face like, you think I'm playing, bro? And he admits the protagonist is the real deal, but confesses he felt something way beyond brute strength during the beating he took. The kid's wisdom and combat experience are insane, like he's got decades of war on his back. So the criminal says he's not going in alone, and plans to mobilize the guild's whole arsenal to guarantee the kill. Scene change. Jungwoo asks if the veteran felt his body move on pure instinct when things got serious. Jong-yoon confirms the feeling, and asks if this weird phenomenon is what the hero calls awakening. The protagonist says the experience was valuable, and tells him training with that memory will level the veteran up fast. However, Jungwoo kills the vibe and asks what Jiyeon is doing there, but the girl's only there out of curiosity. Still, the girl asks how a council veteran is okay being trained by a freshman. Jong-gyewon explains our hero teaches better than a lot of veteran instructors out there, and he also says that if it weren't for our big guy he wouldn't even be a hunter. Then he asks if the girl isn't there too because she heard something about him. Keeping it going, the kid suggests she ask the pro tag for help. After all, he was training the blonde girl. And our big guy is like, bro, who decided that? Then he says his life is none of her business and tells the pushy girl to get lost and go home. The girl doesn't care and asks if their training is really that different from what the school teaches. Without even being invited, the rich girl steps into the ring, recognizes the wooden sword from the last test and freaks out at how heavy it is, and asks if the veteran trains with that every day. The girl keeps messing with the stuff, and our kid is still trying to process everything that's happening, and soon he realizes the girl is even more annoying than the blonde one. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.